Alphonse Omondi and Sergeant Rose Nyawira.
Together with him in the crash were 11 other gallant military personnel, 9 who also passed on with him, and 2 survivors. The gallant military personnel who passed on with General Ogola are Brigadier Swale Saidi, Colonel Duncan Keitany.
Following the deaths, President Ruto announced 3 days of mourning during which the national flag, that of West Africa, the flags of the army will be flown at half-mast in the country and also at the Kenyan embassies in various countries.
In honor of the life and the distinguished military career of the fallen general who lost his life not just while in office but in active military duty, the nation will observe a period of 3 days of mourning commencing the 19th of April 2024. During this time of national mourning, the Kenya flag, the Kenya Defence Forces flag, the East African Community flag, and flags of all formations of the military shall fly at half-mast in the Republic of Kenya and in Kenya missions abroad. Poleni sana.
An official statement is currently being awaited regarding funeral arrangements, which will undoubtedly be conducted by the department, that is the army. Our thoughts and condolences to the family, friends and the country. Now, a special unit has been formed to investigate the death following the plane crash that led to the death of the army officers.
I also wish quick recovery to the 2 injured soldiers in this accident who are now in hospital. The Kenya Air Force has constituted and dispatched an air investigation team to establish the cause of the air crash.
Now, various leaders continue to mourn the death of Chief of Defence Forces General Francis Ogola, who died in a helicopter crash in Elgeyo Marakwet County. Retired President Uhuru Kenyatta expressed his sadness at the death of Ogola and 9 other officers who were travelling together, saying that the death has deprived the nation of leaders who volunteer to ensure the nation's safety. Kenyatta recalled how he used to work with Ogola when he was the Deputy Commander of the Air Defence Force and also when he was the Deputy Chief of Army of Staff. He said that his family continues to condole to the family, but also the country at large. On his part, opposition leader Raila Odinga said he was shocked by the death of Ogola and his fellow officers. He described Ogola as a patriot who committed to lead the army force to ensure Kenya's protection and who showed leadership in the army. And the President of Tanzania, Samia Hassan Suluhu, has joined Kenyans in mourning, saying that she received the news of the death of Ogola and his fellow officers with great shock. In a condolence message to President William Ruto, President Samia said that during this difficult period, Tanzania continues to remember Kenya in prayers. President William Ruto expressed regret while announcing Ogola's death, describing him as a patriot who sacrificed his life to serve the nation. Ruto added that Ogola was a reliable leader in the army and who carried out his duties to protect the nation. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
Okay, good morning on this Friday. What's happening where you are? We're kicking off into the weekend, and let's take a look at what's happening on the roads today as you get out into it. Not much, actually. On the Thika Superhighway coming into the CBD, you're fine through and through. Let's look at all the way in from the Roiru bypass and then all the way through at that point when you get to Moi Avenue, and you'll be okay. No traffic whatsoever, and it's also smooth flowing from James Gishoro crossing over Waiaki out towards the Red Hill Link Road. And we've got nothing really happening as you come off of Oloitoktok and then out towards Chiromo and that side of Arboretum. Jogoo Road also looks pretty good. We'll see some traffic as you get to the City Stadium roundabout and then going out towards Lusaka Road. That will probably going to build up a little bit as you also then get onto Huru Highway, heading out towards Haile Selassie. So it looks like it's going to be an easy Friday morning, but we'll be here for it to see how it opens up. Help us out and talk to us on SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag The Situation Room.
It is, imagine, just like that, it's the way we start our day. How are you doing, Ndu?
Fine, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning to me. And you?
Yeah. You say good morning?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Good morning.
Thanks.
Uh-huh. How's you been?
I've been well. I haven't seen you for a couple of...
Imagine.
You doing okay?
I'm doing okay.
Okay.
I've been around. I've been around.
While you were away.
Hey.
Mambo.
Hey. Kimeumana?
Nakwambia.
Kumeendaje?
Umesema kuna 2,100 people with fake certificates working in public office.
Uh-huh.
And they have till the end of the year to get out and pay back the government that money they've been earning under that fake certificate.
Who was talking about this?
The president.
Motweri of Jaba.
Simina Kusho.
Oh, it's the president. Shh. Okay. Uh-huh.
So they have until December to resign. Yani, just say unaenda.
Wameandikiwa barua.
Ndio sasa wanafaa kuandika barua. It's them who are supposed to write the letters and say, by virtue of this notice, I who humbly resign from this position.
Hawajaandikiwa barua ya kuambiwa wao ndio ni.
Si ameshasema.
Culprit. You are the culprit.
So you know yourself. You know you have a fake certificate. Resign by December 2024 or we'll resign you. Mela. And then you'll do what? The money that we've been paying you.
Refund.
Tafadhali. We are looking for money. So any which way we can find the money, we'll do what?
We'll find it.
We'll find it.
Okay.
And then the doctors, High Court says, now you doctors, you government, sit down. Figure this thing out.
Uh-huh. But they've been told that before by the court.
Now
court.
They said, now...
Court has said again.
Are you guys playing with us now? Sit down. Figure it out. And then stop all this drama.
And what has Nakumisha said? Me, I'm willing to sit down, but these guys are not coming.
I've been sitting down all this time. But me, I've been sitting. See me nakusho. Me nakusho.
And the doctors are like,
what? Sat where?
These people, surely. City?
Yes, please.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good to see you, my brother.
Good to see you too.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping well?
I am keeping well.
It is good.
I bring very many greetings from the summit I attended. It is the East Africa Property Investment Summit. Developers, professionals in the built environment space, you're talking about architects, planners,
Estate
engineers, estate agents, all the people with the money, investors. Wote walikuwa pamoja, and they all said, by the way, hi Eric, where is City? Where is Ndu?
Hey, and we walk together.
Like, I don't know.
That's it. Everywhere you go, there I am. Where you go, I go. Is that supposed to? Hey.
Yeah. So they said, Salimia House, sana, 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 sana.
Santi.
And a few of them actually use the words love. Tell them we love them.
Wow. City Muske. Wanna to love.
May I've heard.
They love you.
Then Lao.
They love you very much. Very much.
We thank them for
Yeah.
their salutations.
Kabisa, huh?
And we thank them for watching the show. Thank you very, very much.
Very good. Very good. Sarit Shah actually had some special greetings. Said, can you say hi to my friends?
Oh, thank you very much.
The CEO of Sarit Center.
Yeah.
Asema, salimia hawa jamaa sana.
Santi sana.
Yes. Okay, everybody, good morning. It's 14 minutes after 6. Let me tell you what we shall be discussing today. At 7 a.m., the Vice Chair of the Council of Governors is the Governor for Wajir County, FCPA Ahmed Abdullahi. He will be here because, well, he's FCPA. And the control of budget is FCPA who? Margaret Nyakango.
Nakuru.
Control of budget has been saying a couple of things about, money disbursed to counties and the utilization of those same funds. And the Council of Governors has said, no, but no, wait.
Hold up.
The narrative being cooked and coined here, we don't like this route. So the Vice Chair of the Council of Governors is coming to respond to some of these issues that have been flagged by the control of budget. 7 a.m., that's the conversation. 8 o'clock. Can you imagine it's been 2 years since the former president, Mwai Kibaki, died? Already. There's a committee that's been set up by the family of the late Mwai Kibaki and the Democratic Party, the party he founded, to organize a memorial. And they will be hosting a memorial lecture. The chairman of that committee is Professor Peter Kagwanja. He'll be joining us at 8 o'clock to tell us, okay, so Mwai Kibaki Memorial Lecture, what does that mean? Right. And what is it that they are establishing now? Like going forward, we have 3 late former presidents, Kenyatta, Moi, Kibaki. Theirs is a bit different, public lecture. So let's see, what does that mean? What do they hope to achieve with that? That is at 8 o'clock. Today is Friday, so we have a Health Friday conversation at 9 a.m. World Hemophilia Day 2024. And a hemophilia warrior, Isaac Waidaka, joins us at 9. What's hemophilia, Ndu?
Oh, it's a blood disorder. The details off the top of my head, how it affects people comes to that. But it is a blood disorder. Yeah.
So
the condition, rather.
Our guest at 9 a.m. will be coming to tell us his life with living with hemophilia. He's a hemophilia warrior. And so that's a conversation at 9 a.m. You can Mnagani? You go so 16 minutes after 6, the live streams are up on YouTube and Facebook and X and on digital radio platforms. Also live streaming, broadcasting on SpiceFM on your handheld or whatever gadget you have that is called radio. You're tuning into whatever frequency across the country. Karibu sana. Those online, tell us where you're tuned in from. We shall acknowledge your presence shortly.
Cloudy conditions in Nairobi, highs of 24 and lows of 15 today, and we'll see lows of 15 in a clear Nakuru at 16, going to highs of 26. It's 16 and partly cloudy in Nyeri with highs of 26, and we'll see highs of 26 in a mostly clear Eldoret at 13. It's cloudy at 24 in Mombasa with highs of 28, and we'll see highs of 29 in a mostly cloudy Malindi at 25. It's clear at 21 in Kisumu with highs of 29, while into Kakamega at 19, it's clear with highs of 29. Kampala is mostly cloudy at 20 with highs of 28, and Dar es Salaam is cloudy at 25 with highs of 28 as well. Johannesburg is clear at 13 with highs of 24, and Addis Ababa mostly sunny at 15 with highs of 25. Mogadishu is sunny at 25. We'll see highs of 33 through Friday. We're looking at clear conditions at 29 in Lagos with highs of 34, and at 23 it's partly cloudy in Kinshasa with highs of 32. Friday afternoon cloudy at 19 in Beijing, highs of 20 and lows of 13, and it's raining ever so lightly in Paris at 8 degrees with highs of 12 and lows of 4. 10 degrees and cloudy in London, highs of 14 and lows of 5, and Thursday night in New York is mostly cloudy at 8 degrees. We'll see highs of 11 and lows of 7.
Haya, salimia watu.
People are online this morning. Good morning, good people, says Namswa Elisha. So sad to lose our gallant soldiers. Indeed. Aircraft accidents have become more frequent in Kenya. Soon it will be like road accidents. Well, no one does not hope so. Collins Kipsat says good morning. Hi, have a good one. Madam Ndu. Okay, my name is Ndu without an O. NDU. Tell me the meaning of the following in Nigerian pidgin. Una. Una is you people. How una day? How are you doing? Una. Say una, City.
Una.
Una. How una day? How una day do? Okay? Una.
Okay. It's Nyeri.
Exactly. That's what it is.
Okay.
Okay, so then saying hello to other people online as well. Rogers Nyange says good morning, tuned in from Voi. Robert Mbogo says also good morning from a rainy Mombasa. Good morning, Ndu, Ednah, Charlotte, CT, and I've not forgotten Eric as well. Yes, he's here. A sad and dark moment in our motherland and the entire Kenya Defence Forces fraternity. May the soldiers rest in peace. Amen. Monica Oile says good morning. We thank God despite the gloom of the day. May their souls rest in peace. Robinson Kisero is tuned in from Hong Kong and says good morning. Indeed, there's a gloom over the country. So sad and gloomy for the entire forces community in Kenya. Rest in peace to the great man. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Evans and Tabo, thank you so much, man. Good to see you this morning. Good morning, everybody. It's a sad day in the country. Yes, it is. Rest in peace, General Ogola, says Dr. Van Vick. Diana Telewa says, good morning, Kenyans. May the fallen soldiers rest in peace. To the CDF, it still is quite painful. And it's just interesting, everybody coming in and giving their condolences around this. It's a sad day for the country after losing CDF and many others. May his soul rest in peace. Good morning to all the folks in the studio today, says the Duke of Boisanga. It is indeed a very sad week for Kenya as we mourn our fallen soldiers. We will keep them in our prayers and the entire forces fraternity. Hello, Princess. Well, good morning to you. A nation mourns. Indeed. May the family get the answers they seek. Rest well, gallants of the soil. Alex Mnai is tuned in this morning. Karanja and Jihya says good morning. Joe Mungai is also here, mourning our soldiers. And Jeffrey Magaka says good morning. I don't know what Jeffrey is saying, but okay, Jeffrey, we see you. Good morning. Sabit Yusuf says good morning. Good to have you in the room this morning. Larry Mutwal says, Guten Morgen from Main Frankfurt, not the older. Okay, may our fallen soldiers rest in peace. Ado Ali says, watching from County 001. King Dave is also tuned in. Good to have you here. Tibbs, I'm still waiting for Tibbs. Tibbs, I want you to tell me your full name. And you're asking, when is Sifuna running for president? Is really? There it is. There is the name. Tiberius Mugendi. Okay, that's interesting. Thank you. You did it today. Well done.
Tiberius.
Tiberius Mugendi.
Okay.
Tuned in from Rochester, Minnesota. That's where Tanoteka is. And Isaac Cherotich says, good morning. They've always been talking about fake certificates, but nothing actually happens. Okay, well, let's see what happens round about now when we're trying to look for some 500 billion. My condolences to the families of the departed soldiers. May God comfort you all, says James Kamau. Mashari Anjero also says good morning. Come now, says good morning. Agola, it's been a minute. Where have you been, sis? Karibu Sana. Erica War is tuned in, says we the civilians pray for so many things, but a soldier prays for only one thing, to return home safe. Tuned in from Kikuyu is Edwin Kahura, and he says as well, rest in peace, General Ogola. Right, Joshua Aguda says you've studied hemophilia in school. So just remembering from those studies, indeed, hemophilia is a blood condition where your blood does not clot. Excessive bleeding, so it's very difficult. So you can't take blood thinners, you can't, So many things. Well, we'll look into that later, shan't we? Jack Awere also giving condolences this morning. Code Africa says good morning. And Brenda is also tuned in. Everybody tuning in. A nation united in grief this morning. Karibu sana to the room.
Karibu City. Last I checked, we're in Cape Verde.
Yes.
We're still there?
We're still there. Today's our final day.
Okay.
Right. This one is an interesting one. If the baboon could see his behind, he'd laugh also.
If the baboon could see his own behind, he'd laugh.
It would be funny to him as well.
What? Sawa. That's a good one. Let's look at the headlines.
On the front page of the Standard today, indeed, it's a dark day. General's tragic last moments. Kenya mourns General Francis Ogola, who was killed in a military chopper helicopter crash in Elgeyo Marakwet, alongside 9 other gallant members of the military. A decorated chief of defense forces who served in office for slightly under a year. He was described by President Ruto as a valiant general who died in the line of duty and in service of country. Yes, there's a picture there. Two things. A man in the picture, and this picture is side by side of the picture of the crash scene of the Bell military helicopter at Kaben in Elgeyo Marakwet yesterday. The accident killed Francis Ogola alongside 9 officers and servicemen and women, and a woman. There were only 2 survivors. That's front and center of the Standard. And we go into page 2 and 3 and look at his last moments and how he rose to the top of the defense forces. There's a puzzle of 5 helicopter crashes in 12 months and why that may be happening. There's also a story about military top shots that are likely to succeed Ogola. That conversation, whether you like it or not, is to be had and had quickly. Moi daughter laid to rest and family eulogizes her as generous and charming. A couple of other headlines that are making, again, column inches this morning. Raila warns leaders against dirty politics. Okay. KWS to pay hotel owners, 454 million shillings for the demolition of their property in 1997. All right, let's look at the front page of The Nation, where we'll also see that final salute, General Francis Ogola, 1962 to 2024. It's a tragedy, and President William Ruto declares 3 days of national mourning after the Chief of Defense Forces, Francis Ogola, dies in a helicopter crash that also claimed the lives of 9 others. 3 days of mourning beginning today. Other victims: Brigadier Swale Saidi, Colonel Duncan Kitani, Lieutenant Colonel David Sawe, Major George Magondu, Captain Sora Mohammed, Captain Hilary Litali, Senior Sergeant John Kinywa Mureithi, Sergeant Cliffons Omondi, and Sergeant Rose Nyawera, unfortunately. And it is may they rest in peace. Looking at the tickers today, beyond the call of duty, it's also a story that's been serialized for a couple of days. My hunt for the man accused of plotting a coup against Moi. Health crisis, progress made in talks to end strike. Is it? We'll see. And also looking at the back page, that's where we look at that story where state and doctors hopeful of a strike end after the meeting.
Let me tell you about the Business Daily. They also have the story of General Francis Omondi Ogola. Kenyans begin 3 days of national mourning in honor of the life and military career of the Chief of Defense Forces, who died yesterday in a helicopter crash with 9 colleagues. And they have the photo there of the general. Big headline: 10,000 private firms reported for money laundering deals. More than half of the 10,733 private companies reported for money laundering in Kenya are in the construction sector, confirming fears that the unexplained growth in the capital-intensive real estate sector could be fueled by dirty cash. The National Risk Assessment on Money Laundering and Terrorism Financing of Legal Persons and Legal Arrangements, that's one thing. All that is one title. It's the National Risk Assessment on Money Laundering and Terrorism Financing of Legal Persons and Legal Arrangements Kenya report, published by the Business Registration Service, shows that 10,733 registered private firms were reported for money laundering in 2022. More than half, that 56.5% of those companies, were involved in the construction sector. What? This was followed by real estate, 8%. Manufacturing, 7%. Money transfer agents, 5%. Consultancies, 4.48%. Textiles, 4%. Retailers, 3%. So pesa, ile inajenga manyumba huku. It has been reported that a lot of that is laundered cash. Ticker headlines. Proof of income headache for cheaper home loan applicants. If you are seeking to buy a unit in the state affordable housing program, you'll be required to present proof of income, the governor said in proposed regulations. Okay. Yeah. See, it's a mortgage. Surely. What do you expect? Proof of income or funds is a document of papers or papers that shows a person or entity has the ability and funds available for a specific transaction. The other ticker headline, locals fight to buy Lipton TS assets. Plans by private equity group CVC Capital Partners to sell tea estates it purchased from Unilever in Kenya have run into headwinds as local cooperatives are fighting to rival Brown's investment in Sassini for the multi-billion shilling assets. There's an interesting one there. Moving on. City, do you have the star with you?
I do.
Okay.
I actually do.
What's on the star?
Well, top right-hand corner in burnt brown, Siasa. Sakaja goofs show failure of hyped youthful leadership.
Guy.
Okay, that's a bit harsh.
Guy.
Wow.
There is no other story beyond that. It's just today, it's just bang in the middle of the paper. Condolences. Ruto mourns fallen General Ogola as patriot and gallant soldier. The last salute. Chief of Defense Forces and 8 senior military officers killed in Marakwet plane crash. Page 4, 5, 6, and 7. Yes.
All right, we'll be looking at that story then in great detail shortly. It's 6:30. Do tell us about the traffic.
Okay.
And then we'll chambua the stories, and those ones particularly that are dedicated to the fallen general.
Okay, so around about 6:30, really nothing happening with traffic this morning. I think we were able to get in and out really quickly. On your normal areas where there would be a bit of a hold up, we're looking at the Pangani Tunnel as you come out towards the city centre, and that's just about it. As you're coming off of Wayaki Way, just a little bit here and there, but nothing crazy. Getting out towards Westlands and then into the city centre. As you come off the northern bypass, also looks pretty good. Kiambu Road is flowing all the way through to the Muthaiga, towards Muthaiga Square. And also then this is Ngong Road, and not much happening here either. Keeping an eye on things this morning as we get into Friday. How about you talk to us on SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
Hiya.
So, I mean, the stories all around the final salute, and we're looking at President William Ruto declaring 3 days of national mourning after Chief of Defence Staff, Chief of Defence Forces Francis Ogola dies in a helicopter crash and also claims the lives of 9 others. 9 other victims. It was interesting to see that yesterday, after the rumors were swirling and what had really happened, and it was in terms of protocol for someone of such high rank, the first report that you're supposed to see or the announcement that you're supposed to receive comes from the commander-in-chief, and that's the president. And when that happens is what you're supposed to take as then truth. The unequivocal response by Chief of Defence Forces General Francis Omondi Ogola to a question on what he would want the legacy of the Kenya Defence Forces to be upon his exit was, "When I leave, let Kenyans judge me, but I want to leave an effective military that is respected the world over and that will deliver on its mission whenever and wherever. It was during an interview to mark his first 100 days in office on the 23rd of August 2023 that aired on the national broadcaster. At 60, the Vice Chief of the Defence Forces in the rank of Lieutenant General had been promoted to a 4-star general and appointed CDF by President William Ruto on the 28th of April 2023. The decorated soldier who had risen through the ranks to a commander of the Kenya Air Force had at least 2 years at the helm of the Kenya military, given that a general retires at 62. And the top soldier had hoped to accomplish much. In a twist of fate, April, a month that he had celebrated milestones in his 40-year career, he joined the military in April. Yesterday also turned to be the most tragic for the general. Another month of April, when unfortunately he lost his life. In chilling irony, United States trained fighter jet pilot who had survived more dangerous missions in the cockpit of supersonic aircraft was among casualties of a military helicopter crash in a remote forest in Sinda area in Kaben on the border of West Pokot and Elgeyo Marakwet counties. The accident abruptly ended his short reign as CDF just days to his first anniversary. It is the plane crash that has claimed the highest profile state official yet. In June 2010, Internal Security Minister George Saitoti was killed in a plain police helicopter crash in Ngong Forest. Professor Saitoti and his deputy Oro Jode died when the Eurocopter AS-350 aircraft went down west of Nairobi. 3 days of national mourning were declared then. 3 days of national mourning have been declared now. It was not just Ogola. There were 9 others who died yesterday. Rather, 9 others who were in that accident. There only have been 2 survivors. It was hard to see, and it was definitely a big loss. He went through the ranks. We're just looking at how he rose to the place where he was a 4-star general and then became CDF. On assuming office of the Department of Defense Headquarters, General Ogola crystallized his vision into one phrase: one force, one nation, focused on one mission of defending the sovereignty of the people of Kenya. He had explained and set out to sell his vision to the entire military. And he said, we will be judged on the effectiveness of how we perform our duty. Militaries evolve and threats to national security change every day. We must keep evolving and equipping ourselves. Even more important to the success of his strategy, General Ogola had explained, was the welfare of his soldiers, because it determines morale and the fighting spirit. So let's just look quickly at his life and times in terms of numbers. 62 is the age at which General Francis Omondi Ogola, the country's Chief of Defence Forces, who died in a helicopter crash in Elgeyo Marakwet County yesterday. 1984 is when he joined the military. 1985 is the year that he was commissioned as Second Lieutenant. 2006, the year a military plane with a high-powered peace delegation crashed in Marsabit, killing 14 people. 1992 is the year Ogola flew to Yugoslavia as an observer and military information officer. He returned home the following year. 1994, he became chairman of the Military Christian Fellowship. 2018, he was made the head of the Kenya Air Force. 2022, the last time the country held a general election. There are stories surrounding that. 2023 is the year Ogola became a 4-star general and CDF. Again, the other victims, Brigadier Swale Saidi, who also died, Colonel Duncan Kitani, Lieutenant Colonel David Sawe, Major George Magondu, Captain Sora Mohammed, Captain Hilary Letali, Senior Sergeant John Kinywa Mureithi, Sergeant Clifford Omondi, and Sergeant Rose Nyawera.
It was a sad story, that one. And we'll look at how long it took before the announcement was officially made then. But the nation also had this story about April Man. And just looking at when he joined the military, when he was recruited as a cadet in 1984, he joined on the 24th of April, 1984. He was appointed the CDF on the 28th of April, 2023. He died yesterday on the 17th of April, 2024. So they're saying he and April had, this kind of fateful intertwine of relations. And then they go ahead now to look at, okay, so what's likely to happen next after this? The Vice Chief of Defence Forces is Lieutenant General Kahariri, Charles Murio Kahariri. He's the senior most officer of the Kenya Navy, which is the formation that's set to produce the next CDF. This is according to the Tonja rules. The same Lieutenant General Kahariri also featured in military changes that President Ruto made in May last year, just weeks after appointing General Ogola as a CDF. Before Lieutenant General Kahariri's promotion, Lieutenant General Jimson Mutai was the senior most Navy official. In March changes, Lieutenant General Mutai was appointed the Vice Chancellor of the National Defence College. President Ruto had defied reservations in his inner circle regarding making General Ogola the top military man, given the occurrences around the election. But he basically just appointed. However, when General Robert Kibochi was leaving, President Ruto said he chose to go with General Ogola despite having over 10 choices. The man has served in the military for so many years. Nothing would, even come into question whether he was suitable to be the Chief of Defence Forces. Of course he was suitable. He had served all these years. He was just about to mark 40 years. It takes you 40 years, if you're lucky,
to become
to become a general.
Yeah.
All right? That is rising. I know you start from the very bottom. You come out from Lanet as a cadet, as second lieutenant. You become a lieutenant. You just still go rising. Many fall off the way. Many retire at lower ranks. You go until you remain with just a few lieutenant generals and one general. So when you get there, that is a serious accomplishment. Serious accomplishment.
It's actually a remarkable achievement. Very, very remarkable achievement. But of interest also, whenever these tragedies occur, we then look at the track record or incidences of air crashes that we've had in the country.
Yeah.
And we then look at how that particular industry has fared. It is reported that we've had 12 helicopter crashes in 12 months. It's a high number. But in addition to that, it is also reported that one of the problems that the Air Force has encountered is that there has been an increased use of their air facilities, whether it is helicopters, whether it is planes. And anytime there is an accident, an airline accident, the first thing that is looked at is, was it pilot error? Then you ask the craft, the aircraft, was there a possibility that there was some fault with it? Was it serviced on time? Okay? And when I asked, when we talk about the pilot, there's something called pilot fatigue. In the civilian world, a pilot, it is registered and is noted, can only fly a certain number of hours. After that, they do not fly. And for that very reason, that they would have the fatigue. Remember, Kenya Airways Flight 507, the Abidjan, Douala, Nairobi air flight that crashed on May 2007. After investigations were done, they cited pilot error. Okay, for that particular crash. That when everybody died, there was no question of there was any survivor. So questions will arise as to how it is that our air wing, whether it is a military air wing or is a police air wing, can register the number of incidents and accidents that these aircrafts have had. It is a worrying trend. Yes. But it is only now highlighted when we have such a tragedy that has occurred.
Questions are indeed important to ask, and then you look back at the leadership of the military, and by the time somebody becomes a general, they've been the service commander, or at least very, very senior in that service. Okay? So before Ogola, who was Air Force commander at some point, there had been General Karangi, who was also an Air Force service commander.
He was.
So these are people who have risen through the ranks of the Air Force, and the Air Force is, we fly.
That's what they do.
Imara Angani. So if you get to a point where you're saying that, so many accidents are happening, so many mishaps, could it be, servicing schedules and all those things? I mean, these are guys who That's what they do on a daily basis. That's their life. If a pilot like this one who's died is a major, that is somebody who has many hours under their belt as a pilot of a helicopter. The military is not short of cash for repairs, so we assume. At least we haven't heard anything.
That you put it well. So we assume.
At least we haven't heard anything to indicate otherwise. So those questions are important.
But we never
then
do.
We go back. Yeah, we never do.
Military matters are never discussed in public. Yes.
But you know, when you have a head of the military who's a former head of the Air Force, you'd know if, for example, he just flew in an aircraft and the pilot said, you know what, this and this and the other, he'd completely and immediately understand. No, it's important to have this. The investigations done.
It has to be done. It has to be done.
And I'm sure they've been happening. I mean, one crash is enough for them to find out exactly what, because it affects their operations.
It does, but then there's this other matter of, yes, investigations may have been done, but the reports are never in the public domain.
No, and they don't have to be.
So you do not know what the problem was. So you do not also know whether it was rectified or not.
It's a sad one.
It is tragic. It's absolutely tragic.
This death occurred because the general had gone to supervise work that's happening in West Pokot. Around 1 p.m. yesterday, 3 helicopters landed at Cheptulel Boys Secondary School in West Pokot. Several people alighted from the choppers and they were received by Pokot Central Deputy County Commissioner Jeremiah Tumo and Chesagon Assistant County Commissioner Naftali Korir, area chiefs and other administrators. The KDF team came directly to the tent where we were. Among them was the CDF Francis Ogola, who told residents that all the schools affected by insecurity in the area will be rehabilitated by KDF. This is according to Tito Lopuriang, who's a resident of Cheptulel, who was in that meeting. The officials spent about 1 hour in the school, according to residents. They entered one classroom, inspected it. Said that one helicopter took off shortly before 3 p.m. A few minutes later, they saw smoke billowing after the aircraft crashed a short distance from the school in Sindar. So these guys were on a mission to rehabilitate the schools that have been closed for many, many months because of the insecurity in this area. So rehabilitate the schools, get the schools reopened. This follows, of course, also the promise made by the president when he was in West Pokot just 2 weeks ago and said these schools need to be reopened. Now, I want to move into the issue of the insecurity in the north and what's been happening there. And the fact that we have been saying here for many, many months that schools remain closed. It shows that there was actually work being done, or there is work being done to get the schools up and running and reopened. It's a good thing. I think what we need to be hearing more of is the progress of such matters, the targeted dates for reopening, the affected communities, and how, whether they are comfortable enough to resume schooling in those areas. Schools are closed because children cannot come to school, because children and their parents have moved, because many have been killed, because it's insecurity.
The attacks continue.
Yes, it's insecurity. How are we doing with the insecurity in this area? What's going on?
Well, look, I mean, it's hard to move away from these stories, but look, there has been a 5-week strike by doctors, and it's saying that we're now hearing that state and doctors are hopeful of a strike end after a meeting, so they finally did sit down. 2 hours after the time scheduled for the meeting between the government and doctors, the parties trickled in at Kenyatta International Convention Center. This was the second attempt to solve the month-long doctors' strike over 19 issues, key among them being the posting and paying of interns and the implementation of the 2017 CBA collective bargaining agreement. Waiting to be briefed on the outcome of the closed-door meeting. As the meeting went on, Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service Felix Koskei, who was chairing the meeting, stepped out and left Labour Cabinet Secretary Florence Borre to take the hot seat. Okay. The doctors were represented by their union bosses, while the government had representatives from the Health Ministry, county governments, and the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. About 3 hours later, the government officials came out of the room, followed by the doctors, unlike last time, No one walked out on the other. Okay. Bore led the government delegation to briefing journalists. She announced that the discussions had started bearing fruit and that she was hopeful that the strike would soon end. She says, we have agreed that union officials will be at the Ministry of Health tomorrow, which is today, at 8 a.m. to discuss issues that the national government has to deal with, like payment of interns and arrears. Afterwards, they will meet with the Council of Governors at 11 a.m. and discuss issues that are in the jurisdiction of counties, such as promotions. Health Cabinet Secretary Susan Nahumicha, who was also present at the press briefing, did not say a word. As the government officials walked away, seemingly happy, the doctors congregated for another press conference with hope written on their faces, but with an undertone of disappointment. Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union Chair Aidan Mwachi spoke on behalf of the union, and he said, what I can say is that we have had a formative meeting because we have been able to dissect the agenda that we had in entirety and apportion the sections to be discussed early tomorrow. We will then meet in the afternoon to discuss the details together. So at the very least, they are talking and saying, can we do this? Can we do this? And then maybe all of this will unfurl at the 9 a.m. meeting today and then the 11 o'clock meeting later. So let us see.
Okay. In the meantime, people seeking health services are being turned away because no doctor, no clinical officer.
I spoke to a lady who had a baby on Monday. She can't just leave the hospital. She was delivered of her baby by a nurse, and to discharge her, you need a doctor to sign your discharge sheet to then go, and her bills are racking up. She wants to just go, short of just standing up and taking her baby and go.
She can't go because there's no MO to sign discharge.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I thought it was a bit strange, but she explained it to me in a way that I finally understood.
What?
But she can't go. So maybe, I don't know.
Okay. The good news is at least she and the baby are fine.
Yes.
That's a happy news. We are moving from NHIF to SHIF. Do you know what SHIF is, City? City, do you know SHIF?
Shitty does not know shift.
What?
You should know SHIF. SHIF is the Social Health Insurance Fund. Okay? Now we are supposed to be transitioning to that thing, and all of us, all Kenyans 18 and above, should register into this thing. Kuandikisha kama ile ya Herod on Jesus' days. Okay? A parliamentary committee now wants the ongoing registration of Kenyans into the new SHIF that is set to replace NHIF halted. This is Bunge. The legislators called for the suspension of the registration to the new health insurance scheme due to lack of transparency on the system being used for the exercise. The National Assembly's Health Committee yesterday expressed concern that while the digitization of Kenyans' details started last month, NHIF is yet to disclose the IT firm it's using for the process. In a meeting with Medical Services Principal Secretary Harry Kimtai, NHIF management led by CEO Elijah Washira, Board Chairperson Michael Kamau, and Social Health Authority Chairperson Timothy Olweny, the lawmaker said until they are fully appraised on the firm that's conducting this exercise and the cost, this process should be stopped. Committee Chairperson Robert Pukose, the MP for Endebess, expressed fear about the cost and safety of data that's being captured and that which is being transferred into the new system. We'll not allow any misuse of public funds. We want transparency on this system. We want to know how much taxpayers will pay for the system, the terms of engagement, and the measures taken on data protection. This is what Dr. Pukose was saying. We must ensure the system used to collect Kenyans' data is safe. We cannot take risks. What do you think this committee is saying? What is this committee saying?
We cannot do what?
We cannot take risks. Basically, Kenyans are being registered into this new SHIF.
Yeah.
Okay? MPs are like, so which company have you contracted to do this registration?
We're doing it ourselves.
How much is it costing?
No.
Until we know who you are using to collect data.
Stop it.
Until we know that. Why is such a small issue such a big matter?
Such a big issue.
Yeah. NHIF has been registering people in this country forever, right? And we're just transitioning to a new system. So, are we saying that they looked at the NHIF system and said, this is the one that was corrupt? We're not going to use that. We are going to use a new one. This new one.
This
Are
new
we
one,
saying
is
that
being run by people?
the procurement was so opaque that they cannot answer a simple question on, this is what we set out to do, this is how we identify the company, this is the brief that we've given the company, and this is how we are managing all those issues.
Are there people in that process?
Yes.
So long as there are people in that process, things will go left, I'm telling you.
But why are they going left? Why should they go left? Why should they? Because there will be people. If you're talking about registering people, it's people who will register people.
And it goes back to the question, why can't people just do the things that they're supposed to do and do them right?
Yeah.
That's it. Just do it right one time and let's move. The issues that we see are just consolidated bad manners piled on top of each other over and over again. Just do the thing and let's go. It's sometimes even annoying. Just do it and do it once. Then people go to parliament, oh, don't bring this person because it's your guy. I mean, for crying out loud. Registering people again to get medical insurance.
Yes.
Hey, yo.
I mean, it's such a and the data that you're collecting, you're not collecting their medical data.
Imagine, you're just
It's just
registering
simple
Eric
biometrics.
Latiff's name, picture, period.
It is simple biometrics. Harry Kimtai, the PS, when he was asked this question by Anthony Kibagandi, the Kitui Church South MP, who is a member of this committee, he said he could not reveal the details required immediately. The system is still being tested. What we are doing now is just a trial. We have not settled on any particular entity. So basically what they're saying is they have not started registration.
You see this shift?
June is coming.
Did they not say they want to start in June?
Yeah.
Not that we want to collect names in June.
No.
We want it so that when you walk into a medical facility in June, that you will start accessing the medical care under the new shift.
Yes.
And we are still doing this thing that we don't know which company we want to use to register your name. Clowns. Pro Max.
Kabisa. It's
But what exactly do we read from this? Whenever a process which on the face of it seems to be fairly straightforward, but what we're dealing with is something very convoluted. It's like they cannot help themselves but complicate something which in and of itself is not complicated. You're transitioning from one system to the other. This system had numbers, had people, had names. So, are you telling us how it is that you are going to transfer these particular names to this particular service? Because they already exist.
Yeah.
Are you telling us that NHIF will now be defunct? Okay, so monies are still being deducted from employees to go to NHIF. What happens to this money if the entity does not exist? Then there is shift, and you will want people to have money deducted and taken there. Again, there's a confusion. So where does the money go to? And if it's going to shift, what is the platform through which that payment will be made if the money is deducted and supposed to go to shift? I would have assumed that when you're talking about transition, all these questions that we're asking, there are answers to them.
Yeah.
And you're told you're going to do this. This is how you do this. This is how you're going to transition. This is what you're going to do. But what we're hearing is more and more questions, but with very little response that you can actually rely on and say, the response we've been given is now this with regards to this. Already, we are seeing problems with NHIF and its acceptability in health facilities.
Yes.
And the number of health facilities that are declining to accept it are increasing. And why? They're saying they haven't been paid.
Yeah.
So they're not taking these risks further. And then you're telling us that this swanky new system that you're going to have, and it's supposed to cure all these ills?
And it's supposed to be so new that even your own data. You've been a member of NHI for how many years, City?
Aye. Man, it's many years.
Imagine. Now they have to come and start afresh.
Again.
Collect your data.
Start collecting your data again. And there are already systems existing where all the information about you that they need exists. It's there. Okay. Sorry.
I don't get it. So, and then it's a new thing we are doing trials. Trials of what? Of collecting people's data. Just people's names.
Yeah. Think about all the systems that are existing in this country to date.
How many times have you taken your name to government?
For goodness sake.
The other day it was Huduma number. Now you're being told Maisha is coming. See, the census, you record your things. See,
To drill.
You stare at this orb.
yes. You look at this thing, it'll capture. Complicating such it should be a very straightforward thing, or at least the communication of it should be very straightforward.
Yes.
It should be like, so this is the launch date. We are transitioning to the new Social Health Authority from June 1st or June 30th, whichever is the case. Then walk us backwards and tell us, so by this time, you will see people coming to your home telling you, we want you to register. Or if you're a member of NHIF currently, do not need to worry. As long as you are an active member, you're contributing, then NHIF has your current active data.
Yes.
Right? So it will just transfer.
That's it.
All these kind of things. And then...
You see the simplicity that you're talking about? It's a very simple process. Register, let's go. But now that it looks as though it's being complicated, what that does is that it opens up an avenue for speculation.
Yeah.
Because now you will start asking, something so simple that we should have been able to do, why can't you do it? Or is there something else that you're trying to stop from happening? Or by this scuttling, is there something that you're now trying to bring about? That's just how things happen. Because something so simple, when did we start talking about this thing? January.
Yeah.
For goodness sake.
Yeah.
Outlandish.
Yeah. The Nation has a 2-page spread on the battered man imprisoned to silence despite suffering frequent domestic violence at home, as domestic abuse continues causing unbearable physical, psychological, economical, and emotional distress to men. Factors like toxic masculinity, a lack of support systems, and limited access to resources are often overlooked, perpetuating the cycle. Kenya started to aggressively campaign against GBV in 1985. 50% of Kenyan women who see no problem with a man beating his wife, according to a 2022 survey. 1,198 hotline. No, 1198, that's a hotline number introduced by Dan Sheshe Foundation for men to call and get help if you're getting abused in your home. There's even an interview here with somebody called Kennedy Otina. He is the executive director of an organization called Masculinity Institute.
Okay. People go to school or how?
Masculinity Institute.
So
They, advocate matters at masculinity.
Oh, okay. So okay. And
It's 7 a.m. news time.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
I do swear in the name of the Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Republic of Kenya and to the President as the Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defence Forces.
The nation is coming to terms with the death of Chief of Defence Forces General Francis Ogola. Ogola was confirmed to have died in a chopper crash in Kaben, Marakwet East on Thursday. Ogola was named the new Chief of Defence Forces in changes in the military in April 2023. He took over from General Robert Kiboshi, who departed after attaining the mandatory exit age of 62. Before the appointment, General Ogola was the Vice Chief of Defence Forces. General Ogola was a graduate of École Militaire de Paris and the National Defence College of Kenya. He graduated with a diploma in International Studies and Military Science from Egerton University, a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science, Armed Conflict and Peace Studies, and a Masters of Arts in International Studies from the University of Nairobi. He rose through the ranks to become a Major General and was appointed the Commander of Kenya Air Force on July 15, 2018, a post he has served for 3 years. Previously, he held various appointments in training, command and staff, including Deputy Commander at Kenya Air Force, Base Commander at Laikipia Air Base, and Commanding Officer of Tactical Fighter Wing. Other positions were Chief Flying Instructor at Kenya Air Force Flying Training School and Operations Desk Officer at Kenya Air Force Headquarters. He also served in the former Yugoslavia as an Observer and Military Information Officer from 1992 to 1993, as Chairman of the Military Christian Fellowship from 1994 to 2004, and as co-chair of the Association of African Air Chiefs between 2018 and 2019. He's married to Eileen Ogola and blessed with 2 children and a grandson. Ogola's hobbies include reading and playing golf. CDF is the highest-ranking military officer in the Kenya Defence Forces and the principal military advisor to the President of Kenya and the National Security Council. He led the meeting and coordinated the efforts of the service commander, comprising the CDF, the commander of the Kenya Army and Kenya Air Force, the Kenya Navy, and the commandant of military intelligence. On his appointment as CDF, President William Ruto explained that Ogola's experience spanning over 39 years saw him promoted to the high office in the country's military to replace Robert Kiboshi, who retired. When he took over, General Ogola shouted his mission, saying he would be one force, one mission. His clarion call, and I quote, "My clarion call is for one force, one mission. We shall be one force knit together with one purpose of providing defense and remaining true to our motto of Ulinzi Daima." As part of his mission, he said he will continue working closely with other security agencies within a broader multi-agency framework for the safety, security and stability of the country and its people for sustainable economic development and prosperity. He died at the age of 62. Our thoughts and condolences to the family, friends and the country. Good morning.
Okay, so not too crazy in the city this morning. We're looking at some movement coming off of Jogo Road going towards Landis, but not bumper to bumper. Coming off Thika Superhighway, that's busy as you come through towards Survey and then out towards the city. But that's what it looks like right about now. Let's look back as we get into traffic hour. Friday doesn't look like it'll be too crazy. We'll talk on SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
It's 6 minutes after 7. Good morning and thank you very much for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation. This is a Situation Room on SpiceFM, on KTN Home, on YouTube and Facebook, on radio, digital radio platforms, Radio Garden and the others. We are live everywhere across the globe. And if you don't catch us a conversation live, you can still catch up with the conversations by following our streams later. On this day, the country begins the first of 3 days of national mourning following the death of the Chief of Defence Forces, General Francis Omondi Ogola, and 9 other military officers who passed on yesterday. This, of course, was announced by President William Ruto last evening. Our guest this morning is the governor of Wajir County, who's also the vice chairman of the Council of Governors, FCPA, Ahmed Abdullahi. Governor, good morning.
Good morning, Nyeri.
How are you today?
I'm very good.
Karibu sana to Kenya's biggest conversation. Of course, we begin the conversation on this sad note following the death of the general. And we'll be coming to you just to get your message of condolence, I'm sure, to the people of Kenya, to the country. You tell us if you interacted with the general at all or any of the other military officers who passed on yesterday.
Thank you. It's really a very sad day for us. What happened yesterday was a shock. So I want to pass my condolences to the families and friends of the general and the gallant soldiers who passed on. I want to pass my condolences on behalf of the Council of Governors, on behalf of the people of Wajir, and on my own behalf to the KDF fraternity, to the President as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. As the people of Wajir, we have a very special relationship with KDF. One of the biggest bases for both the Kenya Army and for Kenya Air Force is in Wajir, actually. And 2 days ago, we were with the general at the closing ceremony of the wage bill conference, and we chatted on the sides, and he actually told me he plans to come to Wajir. They've been very helpful to us during the flood situation that we've had, where they were actually airlifting food to very peripheral places. And I remember even one of their planes crashed at one of our centers in the process. So I've interacted with the general many times before, and it was really a shocker. You know, we were in this meeting discussing how to get back the doctors back to work when we got the message. And you know, that's how life is. You know, it's sad, but I pray that his family has the patience, the strength of patience to bear this loss. I pray that the KDF and the fraternity of the disciplined forces have the patience, the strength of patience to bear this loss, and may they all rest in peace.
Indeed. Thank you very much for that message. And also it's the same similar message that we pass from the three of us and the entire crew at SpiceFM. This very tragic occasion where, yes, we are looking at gallant soldiers, people who have dedicated their life in service of the country. And so when we see this, we all mourn. Governor City Muga is a man who loves proverbs. Every week he goes into one country in Africa. He researches, as he always does in many other things. He now this time researches for proverbs and then brings us proverbs from that country. This week, the man has been in West Africa in a country called Cape Verde, which is an archipelago of islands, right?
Yes.
10
islands to be
10 islands.
To be precise, yes. But of interest, there is a collection of similar islands that form what we call an archipelago. And it's actually a very interesting name. It's a Macaronesian ecoregion. It's an interesting term, but it covers certain other areas around the globe that have similar features. One of them is Madeira, the Azores, the Canary Islands, and the Savage Isles. Interesting features.
They're called Macaronesian
ecoregion. It's an ecoregion, yes. Meaning they are very specific and special features. Okay, yes. You consider it as an entity, but it's very, very many islands. 2 or 3 big ones, but others more or less dotted.
Right.
And you'll find that the capital city is probably in the biggest of those particular islands.
Right.
Now the proverb. If the baboon could see his behind, he'd laugh also.
If the baboon could see its behind, he'd laugh also.
Yes.
Governor, what do you think this proverb is telling us?
We have similar proverbs, actually, in many African languages. And I think it's got to do with something similar to removing the speck in the other's eye.
When you have a log in your
living log in your own.
I don't know. So, usually we don't introspect, we look at faults in others, but yes, and it's others who see what's wrong with us, not ourselves, basically, yeah. So I don't know, that's how I understand it, yeah.
If we introspect, we'd also notice a number of things with us.
Yeah.
Okay, time for that introspection. Now, of course, we just marked 10 years of devolution last year. And we are now having this conversation about devolution and what devolution has done to the country, how far we are going. We have those independent offices that were established to make sure that especially our public finance is managed well. You are an FCPA. You are a fellow of the accountants. The controller of budget has been raising a couple of issues. The Auditor General has also been raising a couple of issues, of course, touching on counties and, how money is being spent in counties. Some of those have been flagging issues that the Controller of Budget, for example, says, look, something as basic as employment, something as basic as just balancing between development and recurrent expenditure. Many counties are flouting this.
Yeah.
PFM Act and the laws say do not spend more than 70% of your budget on recurrent expenditure. Many counties have gone beyond the 70%. Why is it so, Governor?
Very good. Thank you very much. We have seen the issues raised by the control of budget. And we're just out of the wage bill conference. And on day one, I was among the speakers representing the Council of Governors, and I touched on a number of these things. And the challenge that we have, I think, is not so much bringing out the flouting of those ratios, because indeed they are ratios. When you say 70% should not be spent on more than 7% should not be spent on recurrent, it's 7% of what? 7% of the revenues. When you say not more than 35% should be spent on wage bill, 35% of what? Wage bill as a percentage of
revenues.
And the issue that I brought out, which I bring out here, is every ratio has a numerator and a denominator. And we only seem to talk of the ratio with respect to the numerator, but no one wants to discuss the denominator, which is revenues. And that's where we start. So for the ratios, I think our expenditure problem, be it on recurrent expenditure in total or on wage bill, is more of a revenue issue than an expenditure issue. And I'll demonstrate that to you. It's more of a revenue problem, not so much an expenditure problem. That's not to say that there are not things that are going wrong on the expenditure side, but I will come to that later. Why is it a revenue issue? Our constitution is very clear. The framers of this constitution actually left nothing to chance. They protected devolution. They were very clear as to the separation of roles between the national government and the county government. And when you look at the fourth schedule of the constitution that lists out about 14 functions precisely that are devolved, they were very clear what it is that they intended the counties to do. And they also left it, they were not ambiguous in the way revenues ought to be shared. They said resources must follow functions.
Yep.
That's key. Resources must follow functions. And Article 6.2 of the Constitution was also very clear that governments are distinct. They're separate from each other. They're interdependent, which means county governments are separate and distinct from the national government. But people also forget that the county governments are also distinct and separate from each other as governments. So the formula of how we share these revenues. First, vertically, between the national and the county governments. And then horizontally, between the county governments, is very clear. While respecting that resources follow
Functions.
And I think this is the gist of the problem. We're not adhering to that. We're not adhering to that.
Why, Governor? Why is there no adherence to what has already been laid down and what would assume to be rule of law?
Because the key arbiter in this division of revenue is the CRA. The CRA is an independent constitutional commission whose role really is basically to oversee vertical share of revenue between national counties and horizontal share of revenue between counties. But CRA's recommendations are not binding. Yet decisions on pay by SRC are binding. And it's part of the challenge. 2, after CRA makes the recommendation, it then becomes a political process. A political process. Because it goes to the Houses of Parliament. It goes to the Senate, and it goes to the National Assembly. And the politics of things gets in the way. And governors have no leverage at that level. I've also seen disagreements even between the Senate and the National Assembly. We've had situations where National Assembly finalizes the division of revenue without input from the Senate, or without solving the disagreements that it has with Senate. We have had situations where Senate is mobilized politically to agree with the National Assembly to the detriment of the counties, in total disregard to the position of the counties and in total disregard to the position of the to the Commission of Revenue Allocation. So the revenue has not been growing at the same pace with the growth of these expenditures.
Have the functions increased?
The challenge of revenue is twofold. One, there are functions that are yet to be unbundled, finalized, and transferred. We're still going on with the process of unbundling of functions 10 years down the road, 12 years down the road. 2, even for the functions that have been unbundled, devolved, transferred to the counties, we still have a lot of resources relating to those functions at the national level. The framers of our constitution were very clear that for devolved functions, what the national government retains is policy and standards, but the implementation belongs to the counties. That has not been complied with faithfully. And I think an impression has been created. And I think it also emanates from the way we do our politics. It's almost becoming existential for national government to claw back on devolution. Why do I say this? Because they feel that if they don't do that, they will not be at the grassroots where the rubber meets the road. And the counties and the governors will be more relevant. So they then end up doing exactly the same things we are
there's a duplication of function.
There's a duplication of function.
Is that now what I'm understanding you today? Because we just tackling the issue of public wage bill at county level. Is it your position here that the number of employees and your wage bill is justified? It's only that the money that comes to counties is not enough?
Precisely. What I'm saying is...
So you're saying you have not overemployed at county level.
If
you're not overspending on salaries at county level, all you need is more money to come to the counties.
I'll discuss our problems of the wage bill that's controllable at the county level. I'll come to that. But what I'm saying is the challenge of the ratio is more of a revenue problem than an expenditure problem. Why do I say that? Recently, the IGRTC, I think it's called Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee. This is a commission of sorts. It's not really a constitutional commission yet, but it's a technical committee, the successor of the Transition Authority, that was to do the residual work of the Transition Authority in ensuring that this unbundling and split of functions and resources is consummated, is completed. Came up with a figure of 272 billion shillings relating to functions that have either been devolved and transferred, whose monies are still being kept at the national level, or functions that ought to have been devolved. It was a costing of those functions. Functions belonging to counties that are being carried out by national government. The current suggested revenue to counties, share of revenue to counties for fiscal year 2024-25 is 391 billion, which is only 5.7 billion more than last year's, which is 5.7 billion more than the previous
the current financial year.
year. Now, if you add 272 to that number, I'm a guy of numbers, you will get 663 billion
that ought to be going to devolution,
going to counties.
Okay.
Right? And that is the crux of the matter.
But then,
that's
Governor,
the conversation.
Let me hold you there.
Yeah.
IGRTC says this is costing of functions that should be getting performed by counties, but are not being performed by counties. So why have you hired people to perform those functions if the functions are still being, they have not been unbundled and transferred to the counties?
In my view, and I remember saying that, they do not only relate to functions that have completely not been transferred. They also relate to functions that have been transferred. They relate to concurrent functions, because the functions are of three types. The functions that are purely national government functions, things to do with defense, security, foreign affairs, and the like. Then there are functions that are concurrent, and there are functions that are ought to be
purely
functions of. Yes. So if this unbundling process were to be completed, if all the resources relating to functions being performed by counties or to be performed by counties were also transferred to the counties, we will not be talking about inability of any of the counties to meet these two significant ratios. One on total recurrent expenditure as a percentage of revenue, and the other as wage bill to revenue. So that's one side of the story. The other side is no one is looking at the growth in service delivery of functions that have been devolved and transferred with respect to or as against the growth in the revenue. And I want to give you numbers here, which numbers we also brought out at the wage conference. Very basic. We had 874 doctors in county hospitals at the onset of devolution in 2013. Now we have over 4,600. Actually, I don't have the exact figure, but I can get that. We have close to 5,000 doctors in
county facilities.
We had 6,000 thereabout nurses. Today we have 31,000 nurses in county facilities. We had 1,700 agricultural extension officers. Now we have over 8,000 agricultural extension officers. We had nearly zero ECD teachers, because the few there were either being paid by parents or a few local authorities, a few of the urban local authorities. Today we have 42,000 ECD teachers on the payroll of counties. What was devolution supposed to do? Devolution was supposed to take services closer to the people. Right? I'll give you an example. The county of Wajir, before devolution, was the district of Wajir. Which district had the same boundaries from the eve of independence to date, right? It became a county with its boundaries as delineated on the eve of
Independence.
It had one doctor, one trained doctor. One, moja.
What's the size in square kilometers now compared to other counties? How many counties fit into Wajir?
I can. There's so many. Maybe you should be asking how many provinces, because it is precisely 10% of the landmass
This country.
of Kenya. 10%
is Wajir County.
of every inch of the Kenyan landmass is in Wajir County.
And it had one doctor.
It had one doctor, right? It had one place where you could carry out basic surgery, where you could carry out cesarean section, right? So if that doctor is on leave, you will have to bring that mama by road to Garissa County. And in fact, there are so many kids who were born in Garissa as a result of that. People of about my age, there are many called so-and-so Garissa, Eric Garissa. Because their moms required a cesarean section and they had to brought. Now, the farthest point from the headquarters is almost 300 kilometers from where I sit as governor. So, and Garissa is about 330 kilometers from Wajir headquarters. That means if someone had to be brought from the Ethiopian border at Bute and needed a cesarean, you'll have to bring them by road to Wajir and then to Garissa. That's over 600 kilometers. Today,
on a road network which was not that.
There's no road. Up to today, for most of the section, there's no road. Right? We just have those earth roads, which we try and gravel and grade. And then when it rains, because a lot of our road sections are also black cotton soil, you are kaput. You have to wait for them to dry. So, and now, in Wajir County, as we speak today, we have 62 doctors, and we have 13 that we're bringing on board now. That is what? 75 doctors, okay? Of these 62, 19 of them have already trained as consultants. So we have 19 consultants in Wajir County. We've done all manner of surgeries, including what they call laparoscopic surgery. We've done a hip replacement surgery in Wajir County Hospital. A successful hip replacement surgery. That's in 10 years, right? We have at least 5 facilities where cesarean can be done today. We are progressing another 8 into level 4. So hopefully in another year, we'll have 13 places where cesarean surgery can happen. We are improving our level 4 hospital into a level 5. We're putting up a facility which should be up and running by the end of this fiscal year.
The point of this is that services have increased.
The point I'm trying to make is devolution is doing what it ought to have done. When these numbers have grown in these ratios, for the facilities also, there were about 8,000 facilities at counties of all sizes. Now they are over 16,000, right? So these numbers have grown tremendously, but the revenue has not grown in the same ratio. Now this is the gist of the matter. This is the discussion that our friends at National Treasury and even SRC and in the independent constitutional commissions do not want to have.
Let's take a break.
And this is the crux of the matter. So we have then now replaced that with what? With blanket condemnation of counties, scandalizing of counties, serialization of audit reports of counties in the media. We don't see a lot of serialization of national government entities in the media, prosecuting issues to do with counties in the media. So there is a statement that was made by my party leader at the last DEFCON. Odium through and through, just so you know. Which is that the tragedy in this country is the work happens in the counties. Those are the people who struggle to deal with floods, with drought, with emergencies, and with all manner of things. But the narrative is controlled by the national bureaucracy and the national politicians who have hang-ups of the centralist system that we dismantled under the new Constitution. This is the challenge.
Let's take a break. This conversation continues shortly. FCPA Ahmed Abdullahi is the governor of Wajir County. He is the vice chairman of the Council of Governors. So we've seen all those reports, the Auditor General's reports, the Controller of Budget reports, but has even at the Wage Bill conference last week discussing, in fact, at some point you're saying, counties have become employment bureaus. Just employing. You've even burst the threshold of how much you should be spending on salaries versus development. Why is this? The Council of Governors Vice Chair is here to respond to that. 25 minutes to 8. And do tell us about the weather and traffic.
Cloudy conditions, a bit of a drizzle in Nairobi. We'll see highs of 24 and lows of 16. 15 will be the low in a sunny Nakuru, going to highs of 26, and partly cloudy at 17 in Nyeri with highs of 26. We'll see highs of 26 as well in a very foggy Eldoret this morning at 14. It's cloudy at 24 in Mombasa with highs of 28 and cloudy at 25 in Malindi. 22 and sunny in Kisumu with highs of 29, and at 20 Kisumu is sunny. I beg your pardon, Kakamega is sunny with highs of 29 and lows of 18. Partly sunny conditions at 20 in Kampala, and at 24 it's cloudy in Dar es Salaam. Johannesburg is sunny at 12 with highs of 24, and at 28 Mogadishu is mostly cloudy with highs of 33. It's 16 and sunny in Addis Ababa with highs of 25, while Lagos will see highs of 34 and clear at 28. Currently Kinshasa is cloudy at 23 with highs of 32. Busy on the Thika Superhighway coming into the city, just looking at that survey area heading out towards the CBD. That's busy. It's also a little bit busy on Kiambu Road coming through towards Muthaiga Square. Muranga Road is busy as you approach the Globe Cinema roundabouts and the overpass. And then as you're coming in from Limuru Road, also see some busyness happening there. Uhuru Highway is also starting to pack up. And let's take a quick look coming in on Langata Road from Magadi Road. Not looking too bad right about now. But there's traffic that's building up coming in from Greater Down Gong Road. Langata at the interchange is not looking too bad either. So traffic might not be too much of a menace today. Let's keep an eye on things. SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
Accountability at the counties. That's the conversation we're having with the Vice Chairman of the Council of Governors, FCPA, Ahmed Abdullahi, Governor Wajir County.
So this is the question. And we talked about 75 doctors from a time whereby there was no doctor, or there was one doctor around the county. A lot of how the committees or the commissions say how money will be sent to the counties is formulaic. They say this plus this equals this, and that's how we're going to arrive at the money that we give counties, isn't it? Should it be the same thing on the other side, that we say, well, this amount of money has come to the counties over the last 10 years of devolution, we should then have been able to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as a result of the money that has gone in? Would you say, taking Wajir as an example, that the amount of money that has been given to the counties over this particular county over the last 10 years of devolution, that there is commensurate development that can now be aligned to the money that was given, before we even start to ask for more, or before we ask for more support? Can we see that 1 equals 1?
Very much so, actually, and I think I've demonstrated with that. If you take the area of water, for instance, Wajir County has no lakes, no rivers. We use what's called deep boreholes. We drill water wells.
How do
right? In some places as deep as 300, 350. We even tried one of over 400. In others, you'll get water at 100, 150, on average 200. So, and some places are water poor, even within Wajir County. There are places where you really find water, others where you really struggle. But across board, we have increased that borehole cover by more than fourfold. Because we had about 82 boreholes, now we're talking of 362, 367 boreholes, actually, by the latest count. In fact, now the challenge is maintaining them, right? Maintaining them. And the challenge is controlling spatial development, because people are moving from places with water to places with no water, and then you have to follow them and drill boreholes. So, across all, Wajir had no kilometer of tarmac. Today, in the CBD, we have over 50 kilometers of tarmac. And so, we can go sector by sector, and governments are bureaucracy. The county government is a bureaucracy like the national. There will be audit issues. There will be queries here and there. The challenge that we have is in this country, and I can tell you as someone who's been in this field, I have been in public audit. Public audit means accounting firms that audit other. I worked for Deloitte most of my life before I got into politics. The way we look at accountability in the public sector is totally different from the way we look at it in the private sector. In the private sector, we bring out the issues with a mindset of value addition and improvement. In public sector, we look at it from an accusatory perspective, right? And the basic, tenet of audit is that the auditor is not a bloodhound; he's a watchdog.
Okay.
In government, it looks like it's the other way.
It's interesting that you say that, Governor. If I can just,
let me so that I don't lose my thought.
Yeah.
Why do I say that? Because in private sector, you'll be told these are your issues. You could actually have a clean audit report, but with 100 pages of recommendations. You get what I mean? Because issues were found, but they were not material to the balances. In the government side, it might not be like that. Even a small item, right, will lead to a qualification. How can it be? We employ accountants, right? Even in the first year of 2013, not a single county got what is called an unqualified audit report, which is a clean audit report. The only time any county got a clean audit report, I think, is one time when McQueen was given an unqualified opinion by the Auditor General. And the Senate said, no, it can't be. How can this have happened? We'll institute our own audit.
So it's almost as if you need to have some kind of negative tint on your report?
Yes. And for the first 5 years, most counties got a qualified opinion. Qualified means there are issues, but it doesn't mean it's too adverse. Because adverse means we are unable to even carry out an audit. The records were not adding up, and there are some that actually get adverse reports in some of the years. In the first 5 years, a lot of audit counties were getting qualified opinion on account of the assets and liabilities from national government not having been fully transferred, right? So the issue of transfer of assets and liabilities from the defunct county councils and from the ministries that transferred functions not having been completed by who? By the transition authority.
Okay.
And yet it's a qualification on
That goes
account
on the county.
On the county. So I think we need to because as an accountant and as a person who's been in this field for long, I really believe in accountability. But I think we are politicizing accountability. We are politicizing. Because when a representative of the Auditor General, for instance, goes to the wage conference and says wage bill is being used to siphon money out of counties, right? And you have audited the books. Who are these ghost workers who are earning? Are they not Kenyans? Is their detail not there? Isn't there a payroll manager? Isn't there a payroll accountant? Isn't there a chief officer? By the way, the chief officer in the county has exactly the same role and is functioned in the same way as a principal secretary
At national level.
at the national level. The CEC is exactly what a minister is at the national level. We have directors, we have CFOs, and these are very qualified people. So instead of them prosecuting every case on its own individual merit, what you'll read in the newspapers, it's as if it's the governor who took a sheet of paper and wrote names of ghost workers and said, put these ones for me in the payroll.
But Governor,
this is where we're losing it.
You're the chief executive. So
Yes.
if a county, for example, if an auditor comes to the county
Yes.
and looks at the payroll
Yes.
and cannot account for every human being that is working for the county versus those that are being paid, they'll raise it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
If they look at the kind of expenditures that have happened in this county. So, for example, you look at the county assembly members took a trip to this and the other. County executive committee members took a trip to this and the other. And you're looking at them and you're seeing these are high figures and you flag them. As a chief executive of that county, the political responsibility lies with you.
Yes.
And that's where the issue of the governor comes in.
Yes.
And I'm sure you can understand that. So when we see a bloated workforce in a county, and we see when a new governor comes in, they say, I want to audit, I want to remove all the ghost workers, and then the next audit report after that still has ghost workers, then we know you removed the ghost workers of the previous guy, you've brought your own ghosts.
And let me say this. We could deal with the issue of the ghost workers and all those things you're saying without having to politicize them. And by the way, we weed out ghost workers. We weed out. I can tell you for sure. We weed out ghost workers. There is not a month or a quarter where we don't take out someone out of the payroll. And sometimes we even respond to, we even resort to very desperate measures. My assembly, for instance, had a problem of ghost workers. And because assembly is all in one place, it's in one building, what did the speaker do? He brought biometric, what do you call? Key card to enter and log in and log out. And we realized even lawyers who are practicing here in town were on the payroll of
working for the county.
Yeah. So these things do happen, right? But again, there are 47 county governments. I will also accept that sometimes, just like any other organization, the tone at the top, the belief in controls of the CEO can have an impact. It can have an impact on the culture, right? I ran a county for 5 years. I was out because of the politics of things as well. You know my story and the courts and, it's a long story. I got back after 5 years, right? I came back to totally different freshers from the ones that
you left.
I left, right? I came back to pensions arrears, which I didn't leave myself, which I'm now trying to sort out, and I'm paying mine on time. So yes, the tone at the top, the control environment, all these things the culture can be driven by a governor. But and what I'm trying to drive at is the fact that you probably have a governor who is not looking at those ratios, who probably doesn't understand them, shouldn't mean that the accountants and the chief officers and the people who are actually the doers, the technical doers, go scot-free. And this is why I say we will get somewhere if we strengthen individual accountability, if we do not over-politicize accountability, and if we tackle it with a mindset of placing responsibility where accountability is and gradually improving, right? I think so that it's not only accusatory, and I'm sure these things also happen at parastatals. They happen at national government level, but it is not condemned in the same manner as it's being condemned in the counties. One of the things that I said, which is not politically correct, and I'm one of those governors who sometimes says things that are not very politically correct, because as governors we actually feel pretty much intimidated because of the media, because of the way we've been accused of everywhere. It's like all the ills in this country is attributed to counties and to governors. Actually, some of the governors who joined us from the National Assembly and the Senate are in shock. And some of them say, the things we used to do to you guys and the things we used to say about you and the reality we're tackling on the ground is totally different. So we've come full cycle also, right?
Yeah. How do you marry everything that you've said, which is in essence is aspirational, good governance, accountability? How do you marry it with the aspirations of the people of that county?
I think the people of every county in Kenya need adherence to good governance. They need the best of service delivery from their county government and also from the national government.
How do they, yes, we say the words, but how does the Mwananchi in your county understand the concept of good governance? How do they understand the concept of a good governor?
How they understand the concept of a good governor and good governance, in spite of the shenanigans of our politics and how we play it, and ethnicity and parties, and is how they elected me back.
Precisely.
Yeah.
They have things which they consider to be important, and those come to the very, very fore. Because a lot of the things that governors are accused of, if you look at the aspirations of the Mwananchi, this thing about bloated workforce, it's because people need to be, not want, they need to be employed.
Yes.
And the avenue that they have for employment
is government.
And it's their county. It is their county. They feel this is our county. And the pressure that the MCAs will have is precisely that. Employment in many instances take precedence over roads, hospitals, what have you, because employment is personal and the benefits are direct. And everything else that follows, in many ways, is secondary. You have a track record and you can speak of it and you can talk and document. There are counties that didn't have these problems. They had hospitals, they had roads,
they had doctors,
they had schools, okay? if you were to look at those counties now, you'd be hard-pressed to find any upward mobility in terms of development and improvement. It's like they more or less stagnated. Minimum changes here and there. Now, when some of these accusations are made, yes, indeed they're political, we understand this, but it cannot be said that the aspirations of you, that you have as a governor, and the accountability measures that you have can be replicated to all the other counties. That is not true. There are counties that have challenges that defy human logic. And it's because of the tone at the top, the sort of leader who is there, and what they think the priorities ought to be.
I think I kind of misunderstood your question, but I think my answer is still relevant. You know, where the public comes in is that you have given a government the mandate, right? They will do what they have to do in 5 years. There are accountability mechanisms. And if the institutions of accountability play their role, they should put, without politicizing it, they should, as I say, prosecute each case on its own merit. But at the end of the 5 years, you will go back to the public. And you present yourself.
And that's where the ultimate accountability comes.
And where the ultimate accountability comes, right? The Americans elected Trump, right? And now it looks like they're on the verge of re-electing him.
Yes.
Let's see what happens. Yeah? A lot of others out there in the world probably have our own perception and views of things. But again, even the public has to be guided in certain aspects. As our brother here correctly says, if I were to ask my people, do I spend 100 million shillings on roads, or I recruit 300 people more for you, they'll tell me,
Chukua vijana.
Right? Right?
Yes.
And also our public, you know why I say individual accountability? I have a serious pending bill problem in my county. Actually, it was one of the worst.
How does it arise?
The other day I was asked a question at the wage bill conference, and I said, let's discuss pending bills separately. I am a believer that the pending bill problem, both at national and county, is one of fiscal indiscipline. You can't explain it any other way.
Obviously.
Right? Because you have budgets, you must stick by them. Yes, there are delays. And these delays sometimes in disbursements creates an environment that enables some sort of what we call in accounting team and letting you pay this with that, and in the process things do not match, and that creates an environment for those pending bills. But having said that, to give credit to National Treasury, even with delays, they have disbursed what was budgeted for year on year. Ultimately,
for what?
At the end of the year, you will receive your money.
Sometimes it might even cross over to the next year.
Okay.
But they still disburse.
Will receive their money.
The county will still receive their money. Okay. Now, when you go to a county where then you have 800 million principal sums of pensions not remitted, and then there's fiscal indiscipline. And we have a situation where you have account like what you have been told, you have 5 billion shillings in pending bills on paper. When we started doing the audit, it even went up. And these are our people. So sometimes they come to you and someone says, Governor, and
you owe me.
Mimi niko na LSO 10, lakini ni moja tu nimefanya. Tafadhali nilipwe hiyo. And then you tell him what of the other 9.
Yeah.
Anakwambia wewe huwezi lipa, mimi tangojea yule governor ata.
But I'll keep my LSO.
But I'll keep my papers. Yeah. So is the public also not participating in the corruption? So
yes.
And this, if the institutions were working right, and this is why sometimes, of course, there are also mandate issues. The challenge that we have with the controller, and we've said this formally, is a question of mandate, and to my understanding, the budget control mandate is different from the audit mandate.
So you would say that the control of budget is overstepping her bounds by asking you to be accountable?
Not accountable. it's the details of the information that is sought.
Should not be sought by her office.
And at times looks like it's information that ought to be sought by the
controller,
auditor.
by the auditor general.
Yes.
Would you be comfortable then giving this information if it's asked of you, but if it was somebody else who was then living out their mandate to ask for that accountability matrix, would you be comfortable giving that out? Because you've spoken a number of times about the over politicization of accountability. For me, I don't think that can be an issue. 1 shilling, account for 1 shilling. One process from start to finish, account for that process.
Yes.
And I don't think that it's too much to ask for those things to be done at whatever level. But what you're saying is that the person who is asking for that accountability is overstepping their bounds. If it was another person who was fulfilling that mandate, would there be that uncomfortability as well?
I'm raising that purely from 2 perspectives. One is we all have constitutional mandates. It is good that we stick to our constitutional mandates. It can be at government level, at national government, county level. That's one. 2, of course, when the controller asks for that information, even if you feel that the controller is overstepping their mandate, you have to provide
The information
to get your money released, right? But it also lengthens the process of release and contributes to the delays in circulation of money in the economy. Because if the money is first of all delayed by 3 months from National Treasury, we're in which month now?
April.
We're in April.
This week is when I'm disbursing or releasing or getting rather my January disbursement. We're in April 2024. January is in quarter 3 because the fiscal year end of government is from July to June.
Yes.
So in January, February and March are in Q3. April is in Q4. It's the first month of Q4. Today we're at second half of April.
Yes.
And this week is when we're actually getting our money for
Q3. Month 1, Q3.
Yeah. Treasury probably released it maybe 2 weeks back or something. And that 2 weeks is the process of now all this documentation and paperwork and go or change this and that. So, and it delays the process. But then there's another point also. If we have to provide all this information at the point of the money being released, right? And we also get audited at the end of the fiscal year when we spend the money. How did you end up with an 8 billion shilling pending bill?
That's the question.
Right?
That's the question we keep asking here.
How do we,
So how does this happen actually, Governor?
Don't we then need to lock ourselves in a room with the controller, with the auditor, and with everybody else and say what is working in this oversight and what is not working? So that it's not only one directional. It's not only blaming the counties. It's not only, why wasn't this picked? Why do I have to pay arrears of pensions relating to the last 5 years?
It should have been flagged by these gatekeepers, so to speak.
Yes. So, I'm not saying that they don't do a good job, but I'm saying we need to have honest conversations.
So
it
why
will
does
not
this
help to just blame the counties.
Why does this conversation not happen, Governor?
Yes.
And as we are concluding, we are actually running into the news time, and so we just have 2 minutes as we conclude the conversation. There is the topmost organ called the summit.
Yes.
The president and all the 47 governors sit in that. When it comes to budget matters, there is IBEC, right?
Right.
The Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council, where you sit with the deputy president, with the governors, you sit with now these others. You sit with CRA, the Treasury Minister is there, the control of budget comes in, they come in. Why don't these conversations happen? Why do we only hear issues of complaints of, there's little money that's being allocated to shareable revenue, there is no accountability, we are politicizing this fight. Why are these conversations not happening in those meetings? These are top-level constitutional meetings.
Eric, do you think they don't happen?
So what happens? when the conversations come up, how do they go?
Because everyone just defends their turf. This is a challenge we're seeing. I sit in IBEC. In the first 5 years, I was chair of the finance committee of the council. Now I'm vice chair. I have been involved in these negotiations for a long time. We bring these things out in IBEC. We bring them out in IBEC.
Then?
Yeah. But again, as I said, we have constitutional commissions that are independent, that ought to be independent. We have decided which ones to obey and which ones to disobey, which ones to make independent and which ones not to make independent. There is no one time that we've brought congruent figures between ourselves as council and treasury and CRA. The one we ask for is always high. The one treasury brings is always low. The one CRA brings is always in the middle. But there's no one time CRA's number was taken.
Or yours.
Or ours. Ours, don't even forget about it. Yeah. So this is the challenge we're having. And, we must say these things. There must be somebody who says these things. Even if I will sound politically correct, incorrect. There must be, I have a role as vice chair of council to defend the position of counties.
So which way forward?
Yeah.
Which way forward? Conversations have not happened. I mean, movement has not been seen in 10 years. Which way forward?
Way forward is this. Let's look beyond our stations of public life today, right? Let a senator not think that because he has a problem with his governor, then he will not fight for the rights and positions of counties, right? He will not defend counties. If you are a legislator, do not at the National Assembly level, do not legislate against counties because you don't like the way your county is being run, or you don't like your governor, or you are not in the same. Let's not resist change with respect to the implementation of the Constitution. I actually believe if we adhered to and abided by the Constitution of this country, a lot of our problems will actually just evaporate. I am telling you, a lot of these are coming. He just mentioned about the issue of, was it you who talked about the assembly and the trips of the assemblies? We have created a situation where governors can actually tell the assemblies nothing. It's only the assemblies that can oversight the executive, right? But there's nothing we can tell our assemblies. Yet, as governor, you are the CEO of the government, and the government has two arms. So why is it that at the national level, the president can tell National Assembly certain things? No, this, you can't do this, you can't do that. But at the counties, we cannot. Kawira Mwangaza, remember, was impeached the first time before she formed a cabinet. Yes. Should Senate have just said, we won't even listen to this? Yeah.
Governor.
So these are the issues. Having said that,
we've got to end it there.
Having said that, yes, as governors, as counties, we must endeavor to improve everything that we are managing. We must continue dealing with the issue of ghost workers. We must, a lot of our counties are top heavy and bottom heavy. There is issue of technical staff. We must continue looking at that. But again, there's no one size fits all with respect to these issues, counties. There are 47 different governments. And even the way a government is run, these 5 years might be different from the way it's run.
The next 5 years.
So let's all be true to the Constitution. Let's be true to the laws. Let's not overly politicize these things. Let's prosecute every case on its own merit and endeavor to improve governance across the board.
FCPA Ahmed Abdullahi, Governor Wajir County, Vice Chairman, the Council of Governors. He's been our guest 7 after 8. Wow. News time.
Okay, so a few minutes after 8 o'clock, let's see what traffic is looking like around the city. There's a little bit of it here and there as you come off Mzima Springs, getting out towards James Gishuru and then touching on Wayaki Way, crossing over towards the Red Hill Link Road. It doesn't look too bad. There's also some traffic coming off the Thika Superhighway, and that's just around Survey, getting to the CBD. Limuru Road, busy as you get to the junctions, but everything is manageable, it looks, from this side. On Jogo Road, getting towards Landis and then out towards Kamkunji at the roundabout, that looks A-OK. Look at Cabanas going towards North Airport Road. It's bumper to bumper. Inbound also from the Eastern Bypass. That is also clogging up quite some. Looks like it's going to be that way for a while. Just keep an eye on things and see how they progress as we get through true traffic hour. Let's talk on SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
It's 11 minutes after 8. Our conversation continues into the third hour now on this Friday, the 19th of April, 2024. Again, day one of 3 days of national mourning following the death of the Chief of Defence Forces and 9 other military officers yesterday. General Francis Ogola and 9 others who perished in a helicopter crash in West Pokot County yesterday. Our next guest is Professor Peter Kagwanja. He's been here before. He's a governance expert, but also he's here today in a conversation about the late President Mwai Kibaki, third President of the Republic of Kenya. He died 2 years ago this week, right?
Yes.
And you are then chairing a committee that's been put together to organize a memorial for the late president. But before we get there, Prof, good morning.
Good morning. Good
How are
morning. Good morning, my brother. Good morning, my brother. Good morning, my sister.
I know you were going to the sister, but you just jumped. Good morning, my brothers and my sisters.
Now, on a serious note, I think Kenya is mourning, and it's doing so deservedly, because we've lost one of our gallant sons, and we still have to find out how it happened. But what we know, the objective fact is that he's no longer with us, plus his other 7 colleagues, those who are working under him. I like quoting from The Godfather. There's a part where he says, "I'm a very superstitious man." He was speaking to a board of fellow mafias and telling them his son is in Sicily, Italy, and he's planning his comeback because he is not in good health. His other son has been assassinated, and now he's preparing this one to come to be the heir, and he's not sure that he'll survive. So he says, "I'm a very superstitious man. If my son is struck by a thunderbolt, if I'm told that he died in jail or he hanged himself, I'll blame those of you in this room."
What?
Now, I don't want to say I'm a very superstitious man, but we've seen this before. We need to get to the bottom of it.
We should. We should. Siti?
Yes.
Welcome the Prof with the day's proverb. Prof, this week the proverbs are from West Africa. Where, Siti?
Cape Verde, as you call it, or Cabo Verde in Portuguese. If the baboon could see his behind, he would laugh also.
Yeah, so we should not laugh at that. That's just because we don't know them. Or is it the whole thing about the rogue in your eye and the speck in your friends? Yeah, I think this.
I think today our guests are very religious. The guest before you quoted the same scripture.
Yes. Because of the speck, It's because the reason why we laugh at others because we don't take time to reflect on who we are ourselves and what are our faults. We always think that we are the best, and the others. They normally say that it's only the other woman's husband who dies in war. No, nobody
knows.
Yes, it's only the other husband who dies in war. It cannot be yours.
That's profound, Prof.
Yeah, it's a difficult day for us as Kenyans.
Yeah, it's a tough one. And like you said, I'm sure investigations will be conducted into this helicopter crash and the others. We may or may not get to the publicity of it. But either way, there should be an investigation, right? Prof, you're chairing this committee now. Tell us, what's the name of this committee?
Well, we've seen many of our great leaders come and go. Some are lucky to have universities named after them. Others do have roads named after them. But some have just small parks, maybe like Michuki Park somewhere in the corner.
Yeah.
Yet when they were leaving, they were giants. People were taller, who were larger than life. And slowly they disappear. And we said this should not happen to Kibaki. At least we knew him as an intellectual, and we knew him for his ideas. And we knew him for the practical things he did to us. And as I always say, Kibaki made us great and made us proud as a people. Therefore, the ideas that he used to govern us and to lead us to that greatness which we recall should be a subject of an annual discussion and reflection. And therefore, future generations will get to know what these ideas were. And therefore, we came up with the idea of a Mwai Kibaki annual memorial lecture. And in our discussions, we're thinking about next year or next year, at one, depending on how the planning will come out. We'll also give awards for the three things he stood for. Constitutionalism, because it gave us a constitution, strong economies, and peaceful societies. And those three things we will reward. But that's a subject of future discussion. For now, I'm the chair of the committee that is planning the inaugural lecture of Mwai Kibaki to be held at Safari Park the day after tomorrow. Actually, tomorrow. Tomorrow night from 5.
Why a lecture?
Because this lecture is the only way to reflect on ideas. There's no other way. And you are able to bring not only Kenyans, but other people from other parts of the world to help you also look at yourself. If we go by Mzee Muga's proverb, that if you know your back, you would think twice before you laugh at others. So we were able to call people, to invite people, big minds from outside, to reflect on our own. In this particular one, we had invited President Jakaya Kikwete. He was kind enough and told us that the time was too short, which is true. And he expressed, his office expressed desire to participate in future events. Then we had we talked to President Tambo Mbeki, a good friend of Mzee Kibaki, and President Mbeki said it's a coincidence that the same day he'll be chairing the board meeting of the South Center in Geneva, the kind of center that within the UN system that reflects on the global South. Then we said, well, it is an inaugural one. We have allotted them to this next year, but one will be with them. But why don't we choose a come from home? So we have Ambassador Francis Mudhaura, a very even-handed man in governance, in social life, and in other sectors, who will be reflecting on a man he served for very many years. Ambassador Mudhaura has just written his book, Horizon Moving Horizon, which is a must-read for many Kenyans who are in governance areas of governance and public leadership. So yeah, that's the day. We have other speakers. Professor Anyang' Nyong'o will reflect on the economy, the economic ideas and thoughts of President Mwai Kibaki, and how he and President Kibaki complemented each other. It's a very rare partnership because Professor Nyong'o was actually the Secretary General of ODM, which was supposed to be on the other side of President Kibaki's political divide. And both of them really complemented each other. One, a political economist, the other one, an economist. More of a political scientist. Both are political scientists in their training, but specializing, one in the economy, the other one in the public management, which is political science. And Anyang' and Kibaki combined give us the Kenya we have in terms of our prosperity. They gave us the wealth and creation paper, recovery paper. They gave us Vision 2030, both of them, which we to implement until 2030. So what that means is that we have a powerful team that will be speaking to us. Kiprito Arap Kirwa will also be speaking to us as the Minister of Agriculture around this time. Maybe he'll tell us what's wrong. Why did it work that time? Why did we have so many dams, so many irrigation schemes, new ones, old ones revived, and why is it not happening, or why has it not happened the last 10 or 12 years? And those will be...
So, Prof, you started the conversation by actually pointing us to what happens in hoisting leaders and maintaining their legacies in the public face. You said some roads named after a leader, others, facilities, hospitals, schools, universities named after a leader. Is there anything named after Mwai Kibaki?
Mwai Kibaki did not. He consciously fought that. He never had any. In fact, he even resisted his face being in our currency.
Yep.
And when the coin, which was called Kibaki, I think it was a 20 shilling or 40 shilling 44. Coin, came, it disappeared like, whatever in the wind. And nobody knew how it disappeared from the currency.
Why was he resisting them?
Because he as a political scientist, a leader, knew the cost of a personality cult in a country. In any case, for 24 years, we had lived under the most stifling, personality cult on the African continent, only rivaled by Mobutu Sese Seko in Israel. Every song, they had reached a place that there was one minister, no names here, who said that the peace we are enjoying, the rain that is falling, the sun that is shining, are shining credit to
the president.
The president, until the man himself was so embarrassed. They told them to stop.
Remember, he referred to him as the Prince of Peace.
That's the point. Now when the moment you talk about the Prince of Peace, now he was raising it as a bit higher, spiritually speaking, to the levels of.
So Kibaki was avoiding this because he did not want to personalize leadership and make people see him. He wanted people to feel the work that he's doing.
Yes, and that's why he was even quiet. He was a quiet technocrat.
Okay.
And even when you went to a meeting that he was chairing or where, he was more of a listener than a talker. He talked less, listened more. But when he talked, he was so profound, and he would use the old philosophical method of inquisition. He asked questions to get to understand. And by the time he finishes his questions, you either feel you are stupid, or you needed not be there because you have wasted his time. He didn't have to tell you that you've wasted his time. He would ask you three.
You're talking like you have personal experience.
No, I was in one of the meetings when a whole team in the cabinet of Kibaki, particularly from Mount Kenya and their allies, said that after Naivasha, the Raila Odinga had run away with the constitution. It was a very catchy phrase that Raila has run away with the constitution. I was part of the team that Kibaki had asked, as intellectuals, because I was the intellectual in the government at that time. As the intellectual, he had asked the three of us, Kibuda Kibwana, myself, and late Stephen Jiro, in a conversation, to not worry about everything. We concentrate on three things. One is one center of power. If it's a prime minister, it's okay. If it's a president, it's okay. But one center of accountability. Then he told us, when you go there, if you accept, it can be counties, can be region, whatever else. But we want 2 tiers of government because that's what we can afford. And if we accept 2 tiers of government, then you must accept 2 chambers of parliament. So those were his. Anything else, but these ones you must achieve. So when we came, we had achieved those 3 and more. So we didn't think Raila had run away with the constitution because Anyang, my teacher and friend, wanted a parliamentary system. He didn't get it. Raila would have liked the prime minister to be retained. It was not retained. And many other things that would have been it. So Kibaki called our side very quickly to a meeting. And I think I was sitting behind the late Mutula Kilonzo, who was the constitutional minister, and I was the CEO of the campaign for the referendum, and also the strategies for the campaign itself. And Kibaki asked 3 pointed questions, and we woke up and went. And all of us were looking down, particularly those who held this thesis that Raila Odinga had done away with the constitution. He asked, what does the constitution say Raila will do if I say no? Mutula said nothing. And what does the constitution say if I do and he say no, what will he do? Nothing. And what change does it introduce beyond what we agreed in at Serena, meaning the National Accord and the Reconciliation Act? He said no. Bas, hiyo ingine ni porojo. And we left the room. There was no other talk. It was as short as that. Because the idea was to know whether Raila truly had run away with the constitution. So which constitution didn't he run away with? Because Kibaki was saying, in short, without saying it, I have all the powers. The constitution has not added him, given him new power or taken away power from me, as prescribed by the constitution. Therefore, I'm in charge. I'm not threatened. So that killed the debate on Raila running away with the constitution, and we went to the referendum without that ghost of anybody saying that land with the constitution. And I found it myself as the CEO of the time for the constitution. I found it very easy because I would have had a lot of resistance from the lieutenant of the president himself, basically opposing a document. So he was a good reasoner, but a very sharp questioner of things when things were not adding up. There was too much of propaganda.
Isn't it interesting then? And that's why things like this in the present kind of make sense. Because a public lecture of that kind of nature brings these experiences to the fore and to the memories of very many people. And that essentially becomes the stuff of units of study, for example, of case studies that then people can then say, well, look, this is an individual surrounded by circumstance and people who then was able to act in a certain way. And then it can become a formula for governance. Would you see it as something like that?
Yes, 2 examples. The first one is on Kofi Annan. Kofi Annan flew into the country in January 2008, and the country was on fire. Deaths were occurring, particularly in the Rift Valley. And when he took a tour by plane across the crash areas, he came home panting and said, you have to release, he told, I think that's Kibaki that time, you have to get the military out there. You've got to get the military out there. And Kibaki looked at him and asked, who is the military going to fight? Those people fighting out there are Kenyans. So who is the enemy there that the military is going to fight? Kofi just felt this is not the thing I should have recommended. And then he said, then I can bring in the UN troops. We can ask for the UN troops to come to Kenya. And Kibaki said, now I think we are capable of dealing with it because external people don't even know who we are. If we don't know who these people fighting are Kenyans, they know themselves. Let's look for solutions amongst them. So he was a believer in the African solution to African problems. And that is a lesson we can learn. The second lesson comes from Anyang. We're interviewing him, and I was shocked about the many things that have not come to the public limelight. In November 2005, we had a referendum.
Yes.
And Kibaki lost.
Yes.
In that referendum. 50% loss. And when he lost, he called the cabinet. And he kind of dissolved the cabinet.
Yeah.
But before that, he dissolved the cabinet. Of course, the intelligence had come that the Raila Odinga group and others are assembling, and they want to take over the government, and so on. So I think it was what you can call a preemptive attack. But Anyang says that the group within the opposition, another group was saying that yes, we have won the referendum, but this was not a referendum to take over the government. It was a referendum basically on the constitution. So we cannot go beyond that.
Can
and
mix
therefore,
the two.
Yeah. So let us go back to the cabinet and be in the cabinet until 2027. Then we oppose Kibaki as within now a new forum of campaign for the presidency. But this is a matter that is done. We have rejected the constitution. We'll start all over again with the constitution. But in the meantime, let's be in the cabinet. But things were moving so fast that now the cabinet was dissolved, and and as a result, the letter that was written to Kibaki never got to reach him, and therefore he never got to act or even to reflect on the content of those letters. Who wrote the letter? The letter was written by Anyang's team. Anyang was the one who was told to write the letter, saying that we can continue with the cabinet, or we can that spirit as we wait for the election. And that would have helped this country a great deal, because the temperatures that rose after that, culminating in the 2007 election and the January violence all the way up to April, would never have occurred. Now, this is another lesson that it is good for Kenyans to reach out and find out what exactly others are saying beyond what is written in the print, in the papers, what is appearing in the TVs and other places. That it is good for leaders to reach out, particularly on matters that are very central to the state. Those are the two lessons I think will be coming. And you can imagine how many more are going to come from the future debates.
Let's take a break. 28 minutes to 9. Professor Peter Kagwanja is chairman of the committee that's organizing the President Mwai Kibaki Memorial Lecture that's taking place tomorrow. The keynote speaker, as you've said, is Ambassador Francis Mudaura. He was the head of public service for Mwai Kibaki throughout the tenure of President Mwai Kibaki, right? From the beginning up to the very end, and others. We'll be back shortly. Let's take a look at the weather and traffic.
A mix of sun and clouds in Nairobi at 17. We'll see highs of 24. It's sunny at 19 in Nakuru, going to highs of 27. And we'll see highs of 26 in a mostly sunny area at 18. The fog is gone. And the clouds have dispersed in Eldoret. 16 and sunny, highs of 26 and lows of 14. It's cloudy at 26 in Mombasa with highs of 29. And we'll also see highs of 29 in a cloudy Malindi at 26. Sunny at 22 in Kisumu, going to highs of 29. And we'll see highs of 30 in a sunny Kakamega, currently at 21. Kampala is sunny at 21 with highs of 28, and we'll see cloudy conditions through Friday. In Dar es Salaam, currently at 24, going to highs of 28. It's 13 and sunny in Johannesburg with highs of 24, and at 30 already, Mogadishu is sunny, going to highs of 34. 17 and sunny in Addis Ababa with highs of 25 and lows of 13. And we're looking at mostly clear conditions at 29 in Lagos with highs of 34. It's cloudy at 23 in Kinshasa with highs of 32. All right, so here we are, traffic bits here and there on Jogoo Road getting out towards Landis, but then as you get onto Kamkunji there at the roundabout, it would not be too bad, just a little bit of movement, honks and everything. The traffic that was around Survey heading towards the CBD seems to be reducing just a little bit at that tunnel as you get out towards Pangani. And on Limuru Road, coming and joining with Wangari Maathai Way, a little bit of traffic there just at that exit, but everywhere else seems to be moving along really smoothly today. Traffic has not been a thing on Friday for a while now. Keeping an eye on things. Let's see what happens as we come out of traffic hour. And we'll talk on SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag The Situation Room.
All right, 25 minutes to 9. Our conversation continues with Professor Peter Kagwanja, chairing the committee that's organizing this year's President Mwai Kibaki Memorial Lecture that's taking place tomorrow. I want to go back to that question. So this is a man who did not want to be glorified in many ways. Okay? He's also a man who did not want, he was an intellectual.
Yes.
But hardly can we say that President Mwai Kibaki went and gave lectures here and there. So what, upon retirement, what did Kibaki want? How did he want to be remembered? Did he want to be remembered?
Yeah, he did, and I think we tried to write his autobiography. The idea was to sell the autobiography for him to say something and tell Kenyans. I think that was not one of the favorite options. Then, of course, we talked about biography, meaning writing about him. I think it wasn't very much opposed to that. But a number of biographies had come out, and I think the political elite didn't like their impact. Either you speak too little, and therefore people say you are hiding things.
What's the point? Yeah.
Or what's the point? Or you speak too much and step on too many sensitive toes. That was the experience with the Jenga Karumes from Chako to Gold. It was the experience of any other biographies that had come around that time. So I think that really was the issue. I know, I know one of his relatives put a team together, and I was part of that team, but we never went beyond. So I personally decided the way to do, because I was very keen on documenting some of the happenings in his time, if not about him, at least about that period when I served and what I observed. Remember, I was personally in the classroom and in the public space for before I came to Kenya, and therefore had begun to see the importance of documenting public lessons, because that's the only thing that people can have to make a decision in the future. But when the things are happening, you take them routinely as these are normal things. But in the future, they are great lessons for those who are going to come after us. So I encouraged Mheshimiwa Kiraito Morongi, who will also be speaking in this forum, to basically do his own biography, and I will do it. So I wrote actually for Kiraito's book, The Odyssey in Kenyan Politics. And the idea was to ask, where was Kibaki, for example, when the 2008 clashes were taking place? Where was he seated, and so how was he behaving? And so the answer was he was very calm, because as a general, you have to be calm. And he was not moving from his office. He was getting all the reports from every other place and making the right decision. And that is how he was able to pull us from the brink. Because when the realities would hit that I have to speak to Raila, then he will not be told by anybody that I'm not going to talk to Raila. What was in his mind is Kenya must not tip. Kenya must not go beyond the cliff. And therefore he sat down. So I wrote Kiraito's book, autobiography, or biography for that matter. And the idea at the back of our mind is to also bring, because Kiraito was President Kibaki's chief political strategist. And therefore I worked under Kiraito, both during the Constitution and even after. And therefore Kibaki didn't want, after retirement, really wanted to retire, and you could tell he was tired, because after serving from 1954 is when he started leadership as the chair of the Students Guild in Makerere, and also Kenya students abroad. That's when he started his process. He goes to to the Shell for a short stint, then to London School of Economics for his degree, and coming back, Boya and Odinga can't let him rest. They pushed him very quickly, and he was doing the heavy lifting. Drafted the Kenya's first constitution, which now became independent constitution, as providing the back office to the Lancaster House team, particularly the Kano team. Then he moves there, and Kenya jumped into this very kind of divisive debate about whether we want to be socialist or capitalist in the 60s. And Kibaki spent that time as the head of Treasury and also assistant minister for finance, drafting sessional paper number 10 of 1965, which defined who we are, that we are neither socialists nor capitalists. We are Africans, and it is African socialism that is going to guide our planning process. We are not just going to go through emotions, we are going to plan our lives into the future. And that became almost the strategic plan for the period 1965 to 1970. And he took over as minister, and the rest is history. Because up to 1982, the dollar and the Kenyan shilling were head to head in terms of competing. It is after 1982 that the dollar tipped, and that is when he ceased to be the minister for finance and went on to become home affairs and health. When he came back as the minister, as the president, and now the person in charge of the economy, within 6 months, the economy had bounced back from negative 1.6 to now 3%. And by that time, we are going to our national madness, the crashes by 2007, we were basically at almost 7%. And even after the crashes, we went to 2%, and by the time he was leaving office, you can see where we are. We were at 5 point something. Now, what did that mean for the Kenyans? He reduced our poverty levels. By poverty level, we mean extreme poverty. People living below a dollar, and so on, and people not having more than 1 meal per day, or not being able to afford. He moved us from 56% to 36%. That's not a short achievement. 20% of our population had moved from poverty to some relative wealth. And what did that mean for us? We had the fastest growing middle class on the global south, the fastest growing, possibly after China. And the fastest growing middle class meant more consumption. So all of a sudden, you see mushrooming of supermarkets in our neighborhoods, in Buruburu, elsewhere. You didn't have to come to city center for your shopping. Nakumats and others, Quick Marts and others now came to our neighborhood, including shops that were small becoming bigger because people are consuming. Because the force of the middle class is that it is the one that drives economy. It is also the one that drives politics, because it is the one that has a stake. And the moment the middle class is reduced, the country is at risk. If it expands, the country is safe. Are you surprised that after Kibaki, it is us, the middle class now, who are basically defending democracy? And we are the hope that this country will not go straight back to authoritarianism. The only hope is not the constitution. It is the middle class that will speak out. And the numbers of the middle class and the many people speaking out is the one that will guarantee us future freedoms. And so on. So Kibaki basically was that kind of a person. Not talking too much, not seeking a lot audience. He wasn't a populist by any standard. He never sought whatever, except when he found that the constitution was losing, the 2010 constitution. I did an opinion poll, and we went to brief him with Mheshimiwa Kibaki, Kiraito, on what was happening. And by June 30th, it was very, very bad.
What?
The constitution was in a very bad way, because we knew that if the constitution did not get more than 2/3 majority, somebody in the future will always say it's not a popular constitution, and therefore will call for another constitutional process, a very expensive and divisive process. Therefore, we were gunning for 2/3 at least, which means 62 plus. And we did the opinion poll and found on average, national average, we were at 52% by June, and the referendum is on August 4th. So you can see it's such a short time. Then the solution is you have to change your style of politics.
Get out there and campaign.
Get out. So you remember the Nation published this big headline, the new Kibaki. Because the old Kibaki people knew is a person who works from the office, is on issues, is on whatever. That's why his main success was in economy, more than you can talk about politics. Because politics perhaps requires a populist who will whip emotions and get people out and so on. This time, Kibaki became a populist, but within his own confines. So we just got a good model that he'll go to, let's say, Kisumu or Kisii. He'll meet all the Kisii leaders under one tent. He'll have a meal with them, and we'll schmooze around with them. And then the afternoon, that's in the morning. So one county, one day. In the afternoon, then we move to the stadium, and we will address the people. And the issues that we raise will be populist, but practical. And that is what pushed us to 70% within a period of 1 month, or more than, it's right above 1 month. So the Constitution won comfortably with almost 70%.
How do you hope the lessons that will be given during these lectures, this one that you're starting with, and even future lectures, how do you hope those lessons will translate into better governance and leadership in Kenya?
First and foremost, we'll document them for our children. Every lecture that comes up, we'll try to turn it into the Kibaki lecture 2024, and with the main lessons that are coming from it, what is said and so on, so that Kenyans can read, not the heavy reading that we do in the university in terms of big books, but something that is short, like Mazrui's, Ali Mazrui's lectures, which were very, very provocative and a lot of impact. If you begin to read them, for example, how Pax Africana, the African peace, and so on. There are things we like reading. Very short. The most influential book in the history of the world is not the Bible. It's actually the Communist Manifesto. And the Communist Manifesto is this small. You can actually read it as you have your coffee at Java. It is so small. So that's one of the things. Two, as we move, the number of people attending these meetings will be larger. I'm looking at a time when we'll get possibly the biggest hall. Now we have gotten the biggest hall at Safari Park. But the people attending are leaders, and the moment you are socialized to an idea, then you don't forget, and you convey it to the others.
Yeah, I was going to ask then how we would see the manifestation of what you learn, of what you hear from an experience of a man who, led in the manner in which he did, and for whom examples are still being used about today, how you would then be able to take that and then convey it, or at least use it for yourself in a place where people are still grappling for this proper kind of governance and leadership. How would that look? What would that look like?
Yes, our critique of President Ruto's government is very objective, and it is based on the experience under Kibaki. Because his statement during the inaugural lecture was said that at the time when the country was governed by the personal whims, and knee-jerk actions is over. And we began to see the economy is guided by this. For the first time under President Kibaki, we drafted the first Kenya foreign policy. And few countries are courageous enough to kind of come up with a written document about their foreign policy. And in it, we put our pillars. What are the pillars of our foreign policy? Under him, we had an economic document. We had a document on how we're going to use our water resources, drafted under Mother Karua's ministry. So we had a document guiding us in every sector. When the CDF came, what do you call this? The money that you give to the counties. Yes, the CDF came. There was a document backing that, over and above the law that is passed by Parliament. Laws in Parliament are simply reduction or minimization of a larger debate. They condenses debate. So under Kibaki, everything was written. Now, in the future, when we resist a culture where people make pronouncements on roadsides and those becomes the guiding principles, and therefore you find yourself in the kind of situation we are finding ourselves now, that we have the NHIF and people have paid for it, right? And then we have another one which is not finished. And because we are now in this, we are caught up in this interregnum where the old one is dying and the new one has refused to be born. You're caught in that one. How do you do? And therefore people are dying in words because they cannot pay. We are now talking about, fundraising for some of our colleagues who cannot pay because NHIF cannot pay for them. And why is that? Because there was not a deliberate process to look at why we are reforming and write a white paper, a blue paper, or any official document approved by the public, approved by the ministries, approved by the cabinet, and then approved by Parliament as a white paper. That was the issue about sessional paper number 10 of 1965. You are reducing an ideological debate into something that's written. Yes, capitalism is good, socialism is good, but this is what we want to do, and for this reason. Because we want something that will help us or guide us in planning the future of our country. And therefore, what we get from these Kibaki lectures are lessons that we learn so that we can hold our governments to account. Because that's what democracy is about. Democracy is not about saying, yes, sir, yes, sir. It is about literally saying, sir, you would make a better man if you concentrated on growing losses. You're not a good leader.
Let me ask this question.
Yes.
When we talk about lessons learned and we talk about the human experience, the odd thing about our learning process and curves is that our best lessons are learned in adversity and in situations which are probably marked more by failure than with success. In these lectures, will there be people who will be pointing out certain errors that were made in the time of the presidency of Kibaki, or decisions that were made, because they must exist? Because for him to be the leader he was, he must have made some mistakes and he learned from those mistakes.
Yes. That's essentially it. And that's why it's me as an intellectual rather than Mudhaura. We are inviting Mudhaura to this. He should be the one possibly, if we are thinking of the other way around, who would be championing this. And therefore having these woody, bureaucratic kind of lecture that calls Bishop so-and-so, Cardinal so-and-so to talk and call former minister this and that. Yeah, we and even before we get to the podium, we have already started debates. I'm telling you, we spent two or so hours with Professor Nyong'o, basically not just reflecting, but looking at what went wrong and what went right, and what were the lows and highs of the system. Lessons are not about what was good about. In fact, we learn more lessons from mistakes than what we think we did right. So in this case, well, definitely you are not going to pour scorn on a man who need to be resting in his eternal peace. That's not the whole spirit. But then, since you are learning lessons from him, take for example, many people, including his own contemporaries, who say President Kibaki was a fence-sitter. He was too much of a gentleman, was a fence-sitter. But then when you sit back and look at those who didn't follow his style of gentlemanness, now what happened? From 1965, look at his closest friends, the people he worked with in the office on a day-to-day basis. What happened to all of them? Without mentioning name, or if you wish, we can mention Tom Mboya. He was his boss from 1963 to 1965. What happened? J.M. Karaoke, they came from the same village, the same area, and so on. What happened? And Amoy, his best friend was Kenneth Matiba and others. Yes. And that's a debate you'll have, for life. How do you want to die today or live to fight another day? Again, these are the lessons you learn from life.
The coward goes home to his mother.
Yeah, yes, but then what happens? So those are some of the critiques, because one of the greatest critiques that gives the rise of Foda Siri and the Democratic Party in Mount Kenya region, because they were two dominant parties, and why Matiba and Kibaki had become number one and number two. That was an ideological debate we had in Mount Kenya region. And how did people troop back to Kibaki? They started seeing the wisdom of being strategic in whatever we're doing. And at the end of the day, it is Kibaki's style that won. And when he transformed the people, today we say he must be the most consequential president that has governed this country. The most consequential. I'm not saying this from a biased point of view, but the statistics should tell you what we are talking about.
There's an interesting concept that is often discussed in politics. It's called the role of chance. And those who are positioned to take advantage of it. Because the things that sometimes happen, whether sequentially or not, and even if you apply logic to it, logic doesn't quite cover all of it. Because it's like circumstances conspire to bring about a certain situation. And then that situation makes it possible for certain things to move ahead. See, when you say there are those who considered Kibaki a fence-sitter, if you look at his life, he actually wasn't a fence-sitter at all.
No.
So it was a narrative that was spun.
Yeah.
And if you look at the decisions that are attributed to him, they were deliberate. They were just not loud.
Yeah. And some of the statements he would make were so cutting, and he was not shying away from commenting on things that were happening. Take, for example, when there was this debate at the university that there's a certain lecturer, according to one of the hawks of the time, there was one lecturer called Karl Marx who was inciting our children. We should get rid of this Karl Marx. That was the recommendation from this public figure. And the kids are asking for dialogue. Let them be given dialogue. Of course, dialogue meant chapati. And of course, Karl Marx was not alive. So Kibaki, as the vice president, wanted basically to kill this debate because it was beginning to embarrass him. And he simply said, and for many of us who are commenting, we must allow Karl Marx to sleep in peace. He didn't go into long lecture of saying Karl Marx was born in this time and died in this time, and therefore he's not and there's no lecturer at the University of Nairobi called Karl Marx. He simply answered in a very cutting way. The other example that we know is when his election was about to be leaked in Othaya. Some people, I think, called Cabbage Boga, were raised to basically oppose him. And if somebody could say this is a state machination to basically undercut him. And he stood up. I think the Weekly Review captured him, catching a train. It was very fast, and his checkered coat was basically flying back. And he was saying, rigging has some intelligence to it. This is not rigging. So, it's a quip because the rigging has intelligence to it. Yeah. When it is blatant, you can see the Q is this wrong, and then you count the small Q. What are you trying to do? This is what was, and everybody was complaining about Murorongo. His colleagues did not take the calm route that he took. they read, so in the cabinet. And of course, the rest is history about the movement for multi-party democracy and the consequences of it at that particular time. So it's simply to say that Kibaki was not really silent. It's only that he timed his statements.
Okay.
And he remained within that the corner of decorum.
Right. Prof, thank you very much. Is the lecture open to the public? Or not this one?
Not this one, because this is the dry run for future ones.
Okay.
So what has happened is that people will also have a meal around it.
Okay. Professor Peter Kagwanja is chairing the committee that's organizing the inaugural Mwai Kibaki Memorial Lecture that's going to be taking place tomorrow. We hope to see the videos from this event, from those lectures, from those that speak, and at least we start enjoying the wisdom of that share. Keep it here for more conversations, 9 a.m.
145656 account number VB na unaweza kujishindia 300,000. Kumbuka deposit kwanza.
Good morning, this is Newswire Dennis Aseto. Approximately 52.1 billion shillings has been released back to the economy as a result of the expeditious resolution of cases through court-annexed mediation. Data released by Chief Justice Martha Koome shows now CJ Koome told participants at the start of the second annual mediation summit that a total of 16,770 matters out of 18,162 referred to court-annexed mediation had been resolved, translating to a 92.3% conclusion rate. Since last year's summit on mediation and banking, over 400 matters have been referred to mediation in the banking sector alone. Court-annexed mediation has been rolled out in 40 counties, and efforts are being made to bridge the gap in the remaining 7 counties, with 60 mediation registries supporting 118 courts having been established. And Kenyans applying for passports will, effective May 1st, 2024, acquire the travel documents within 21 days of application. This is according to Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki. The announcement comes days after the government commissioned 2 new printing machines in Nyayo House, which are expected to churn out about 600 passports per hour, aligning with the Interior Ministry's goal to double the number of passports issued in 2024 to at least 1 million, up from 533,000 in 2023. In a statement to newsrooms now, Kindiki revealed that starting August, the passport processing period will decrease to 7 days and then further reduced to just 3 days effective November. The Mlimani High Court has denied the bail plea of murder suspect Kevin Kang'ethe pending an extradition hearing before the same court. The ruling comes 9 days after the prosecution team, led by Vincent Monda and Magdalene Doughty, opposed Kang'ethe's plea, citing several issues that make him a flight risk, among them his immediate departure from the United States following his alleged offense, which prompted an Interpol red alert and an arrest warrant issued by a U.S. court. While issuing the verdict, Chief Magistrate Lucas Onyina shared the prosecution's sentiments. Now, the Orange Democratic Movement leader Raila Odinga has moved to quell disunity within the party, telling off those reportedly creating their own factions within the opposition political outfit. Odinga, who insisted that ODM should remain united, rallied all his troops across the country to forge a common front if the party is to capture the presidency in 2027. The former Prime Minister, who was addressing delegates during the National Governing Council at the Bomas of Kenya, said there is no vacuum in ODM as of yet, since he has not even captured the African Union Commission seat. India's parliament is made up of Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. The election beginning today is to vote for MPs for the Lok Sabha. All citizens living in India who are 18 years or older can register to vote, except for those who are barred on grounds of unsoundness of mind or criminality. A party or coalition needs to win 272 seats in the 543-member House to form the government. And aging air defenses have left Iran vulnerable to an Israeli attack if Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu decides to ignore global pressures not to retaliate directly for the unprecedented drone and missile salvos of Saturday night, setting aside the wider diplomatic and strategic costs that are likely to be the strongest deterrent to any counterstrike. Experts say Israel would have little trouble hitting targets inside Iran, which has been obsolete air defense and indigenous air defense systems based on aging Russian models. These as today Israel struck Iran. And Dubai, a city in the desert, proud of its futuristic glows, was busy clearing its waterlogged roads and drying out flooded homes 2 days after a record storm saw air rainfall in a day. Dubai International Airport, a major travel hub, struggled to clear a backlog of flights and many roads were still flooded in the aftermath of Tuesday's deluge. The rains were the heaviest experienced by the United Arab Emirates in the 75 years that records have been kept. They brought much of the country to a standstill and caused significant damage. This is News. I'm Dennis Assetto. Good morning.
All right, traffic has not been too much of a bother this morning. We're looking at some of it here and there in the city. Coming off a thicker superhighway, that hasn't been too bad today, but we're just seeing the last of it as you come off of Kiambu Road going towards Muthaiga Square. There's some of it on Limuru Road as well, getting into the CBD, and we're seeing the very last of it on Ngong Road this morning, getting into the city. We're going to keep an eye on things as we go along. We'll talk on SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag The Situation Room.
Seven after 9, how are you doing? It's the first of 3 days of national mourning as declared by President William Ruto yesterday, following the death of General Francis Omondi Ogola, the chief of Kenya's Defence Forces, who passed away yesterday in a helicopter crash alongside seven other officers. General Ogola is a man who, the president said, I am deeply saddened to announce the passing on of General Francis Ogola, the Chief of Defence Forces. Together with him in the crash were 11 other gallant military personnel, 9 who also passed on with him, 2 survived. Those others who departed were Brigadier Swale Saidi, Colonel Duncan Keitani, Lieutenant Colonel David Sawe, Major George Benson Magondu, Captain Sora Mohammed, Captain Hilary Litali, Senior Sergeant John Kenywa Mureithi, and Sergeant Clifons Omondi, as well as Sergeant Rose Nyawera. The President says, this is a moment of great sadness for myself as the Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defence Forces, the Kenya Defence Forces fraternity, and the nation at large. Our motherland has lost one of her most valiant generals, gallant officers, servicemen and women. The demise of General Ogola is a painful loss to me, and certainly the sorrow we all feel about his passing is shared by all the people of Kenya, and especially the KDF fraternity. A distinguished 4-star general has fallen in the course of duty in service to this country. Notable, this is the first general to die in office. Actually, of all the former generals, only General Mulinge has died. The other generals are still alive. Mahmoud Mohammed, Kianga, Tonje, all of them are alive. he has died. He's died in office. He's died actually in the course of duty. It's not even that he died. He was ill. He was no. He had come. He was on assignment, and he died here. And it's a very, very sad one. I got a message early this morning from Major Twalib Mbarak, retired Major Twalib Mbarak. He's the CEO of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. He says they joined the military together in 1984. We were to have our 40-year anniversary celebrations since joining the military in Langata Barracks on the 27th of April. Major Mbarak says General Ogola is gone in a very tragic way. He was a fighter pilot and was involved in delicate and dangerous flying missions, but mipango ni ya Mungu. General Ogola was a gentleman, a polished military officer, a mentor to his peers and to his juniors. He was socially humble and firm in decision-making. He was the best overall cadet during our training in the military. May Allah grant us comfort and patience during this time of mourning. So this is somebody who joined the military with him those 40 years ago. And he says, actually, in our cohort, he was the best. He was the best performing in Lanet in 1984. It's no wonder, therefore, that he rose to be the Chief of Defense Forces. He's a man who's really, really passed away. City, what do you remember? What do you say of General Ogola?
You know, it's when such a tragedy occurs, the honest truth is that you'll be lost for words. Because where do you actually start? Even if you want to offer condolences, will the words that you have or the words that you formulate in your mind, will they be adequate to actually do justice to such a person? Because if you look at our military from the time of independence, you can count the number of generals who have actually headed the military. You can count them. They are essentially a handful.
Yes.
Okay. And when this happens, and the tragedy is that it is an aircraft that is actually owned by the military. It raises more questions than it provides answers. It's one of these tragedies that leaves you dumbfounded. But what is certain is that by the time somebody rises within the Kenyan military to the position that General Ogola did, believe me, that person exemplified excellence. It isn't possible. If there's one institution in this country that follows the ethos of a meritocracy, it is the military. You know, and you can even tell, and you can chart, and you can know this person moved from this stage, and the reason they moved was this. The reason why they got promoted was this. Because at the time you become a lieutenant general, that's a 3-star general. That isn't an easy feat. That is not an easy feat. Many people fall at the level of colonel, 1-star general, brigadier, major generals, a lieutenant general. That is a very high ranking officer. Now then someone becomes a 4-star general, a full general. Now that is something else.
Isn't it a good thing though to do that? In fact, as we look back at all this, even when the president was saying, I had many other options, people are like, yeah, boss. The person that you picked, nobody can ask, did you pick this one on merit or no merit? No general has risen to the level of general in this country. Somebody can sit back and say,
who you are. Not really, you can't.
This institution has actually gotten to that level. There's credit, of course, to General Tonje and trying to say that, from this point on, meritocracy shall be the one that reigns supreme. Even at this point when we are mourning a man who has served in the military for 40 years, you're like...
Yeah, I mean, and I put it against the backdrop whereby this institution can only have 1 4-star general at a time. Can't have 2, can't have 3. And it was very clear, it was a no-brainer who that ought to be. And putting him in the position of CDF meant that he went to a 4-star general instantaneously. So, if not for the pedigree that then he had been able to offer over the last 4 decades, it would be very clear. It would not have been clear who it was, but it was obvious, not just to those who were making the appointment, but to those he worked with, those who saw him rise from the ranks when he left Lanet and all the things that he did thereafter, going into the Navy, becoming the very top, going to Yugoslavia, coming back, and the things that he did after that for the country. And I think it is a fantastic example of how hard work and authentic integrity then gets you to the place whereby you are selected and nobody doubts whether you're worth your salt.
By the way, if the thing that I also found interesting as I observed, I have observed the president on very many occasions. I have actually never seen the man this sad.
He was visibly.
Yes. He was visibly shaken. You could actually see. His demeanor, everything about even the announcement, he was laboring. And for a man who has the ease of conversation like our president to actually labor over something, it's something that it touched a nerve, a very serious nerve.
And just very quickly, I mean, there were very many things that were said yesterday, and one thing that came out was that generals never die, okay? But it was, and I know that a lot of that was being said with a tint of speculation, but I choose to look at it like generals never die, because guess what? They are the very cream of their pedigree. By the time they get to the position where they are, they have done exceptionally well, and that's why they've been chosen. And even after they leave the service, they're still regarded in the highest.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You know, they are. So generals indeed do never die.
You know,
and that's why this is such a huge, huge loss.
You know, from among themselves, they will tell you. And that's why you know that the choices are these people.
Yep.
So you even know who follows next. It's not something that it's not subject to debate. It's within the military, it's fairly clear. And they will give you reasons and tell you it's because of this and because of this and because of this.
And for many of them, they'll even tell you, in our cohort,
Yes.
this we could tell.
Yes.
Remember when you had an interview here with Lieutenant General Badi?
Yes.
And he was telling us about his cohort.
Yes.
And how they rose and how many then, retired at certain ages. And he was saying, by the time I'm actually getting to Lieutenant General, we were many.
Yes.
We only a few of us who are getting to this level.
Very true.
From our class.
Yes.
And we know one another.
Yes.
And I can tell you how we've all performed to rise to this level. So it's, even the peers know.
Well, they know.
This guy.
They know.
This guy, he's become brigadier. Okay, yeah. He's become the major general. All right, yeah. Lieutenant general, yes. General, it's either him or so and so or so and so. I mean, we know. These are the guys who are going to be. Among this, we have a CDF.
You know, it's very interesting because when they're at Lanette, it is all divisions of the military, whether you are Air Force, whether you are Navy, whether you are Army, they're all there. So they actually, as you say with the cohort, they actually know each other. And they'll tell you, you know so-and-so, yes, so-and-so was a cohort behind me, in front of me, so someone was a cohort that was. But I guess that is one of the reasons why the military is so cohesive.
Indeed.
Indeed.
Yes.
Indeed. And as we celebrate the life of General Francis Ogola, let's actually remember that institution and how professional it is. Oh, how we wish the entire country was like this. Okay. Wednesday, the 17th of April, 2024 was World Hemophilia Day, right? And we asked ourselves this morning, as we said, we're going to have our Health Friday conversation around World Hemophilia Day. What is hemophilia? We have invited somebody who is a hemophilia warrior, Isaac Waidaka. He's here with us in the studio. Isaac, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. Karibu sana. That's called the hot seat of the Situation Room. How does it feel?
It's hot.
No, not yet, boss. Not yet. Tulia. Let's welcome you to the conversation. You are here to educate us about hemophilia. Not many people know what hemophilia is. Not many people can even tell what that means. So you'll tell us. But welcome. City will give you the day's proverb. Every week, City gives us proverbs, 5 proverbs from one African country. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Today is the final day of proverbs from which country?
Cape Verde, Cabo Verde. If the baboon could see his behind, he would also laugh.
You have laughed. Isaac, what's your interpretation of this proverb?
First of all, I think it's interesting. It's funny in itself. But I don't know why, but for me, it just goes straight to thinking about politicians.
That's a good start.
It seems like we see what they do. Particularly, I mean, there are particular ones that we see their behavior, we see what they do, even as presented in the media, but behind the scenes as well. But they don't seem to see it. I think from my perspective,
everybody else
if they saw it, I don't think they'd be doing what they're doing.
Right. You're not wrong when you think about baboons and anything politicians. That's why even the Mzungu said it's a parliament of monkeys.
Maybe that's the context.
Called a parliament of monkeys for a reason. Anyway, what is hemophilia, Isaac?
Right. So, first of all, thank you for having me. Hemophilia is a bleeding condition. Right. So it's a bleeding disorder, and in simple terms, it's where a person's blood does not clot as it ought to. So, say in a case where you have, a cut somewhere, and you're bleeding, the blood does not stop bleeding in the time expected for it to stop bleeding, like for anyone else. So blood doesn't clot, the wound doesn't close on time. Right. So that is in a
nutshell. That's what it is.
That's what it is.
So it's when you start bleeding, you don't stop bleeding.
You don't stop bleeding.
What makes it not do that?
So in the blood, of course, there are different components of the blood. There are those that you learned in biology. There's the white blood cells, red blood cells, platelets. But then there are others, and other smaller ones, so smaller sort of proteins. So some of those proteins are called clotting factors. So when you see blood clot somewhere, what happens is that there's a protein that is activated. It's a chain reaction. That's activated all the way to that blood clotting. It's one of the most complex processes in the body. And so if you have a deficiency of any one of those clotting factors, if you produce just too little or something, or sometimes there's a problem with the genetics that produce those clotting factors, then you have a bleeding disorder.
I see.
Right? Okay. Because either the blood doesn't clot in good time, and so it breaks the clot. So, for example, the pressure from the blood will break the clot before it forms. So that's, especially for hemophilia, that's the main cause.
Okay. Yeah. So then, how does that affect you? How did you? I mean, and this is something that you're born with.
It is, for the most part.
Okay.
I would just say about 70% of people are born with it, and they inherit it from a parent.
Yes, so it's hereditary, okay.
Yeah, it's hereditary, but about 30% of cases, it just happens.
So how do you know what happened to you when you were younger, that then they said, okay, there's a problem here? What would happen? You scrape your knee, would not heal? What are we talking about?
So my case in particular, I was lucky to have had an elder brother who had hemophilia. And so all the way from childbirth, when his umbilical cord was cut, there was excess bleeding, to taking care of the child. When he's crawling, you can see bruising on the knees, on the arms. So from the time my parents saw that, and they started taking him to hospital. Now, unfortunately, at the time, not many people knew that. I think in Kenyatta, there was just one doctor who could handle that. He was a hematologist. And so they went through that difficult part. By the time I was born 6 years later, they already knew. Now, they didn't know what exactly this was. Even at the time, they just knew it's a problem. The child is not supposed to play too much, right?
Because he could bleed.
That was as much information as there was, honestly.
Right.
And so by the time I was born, they saw the symptoms, some of them, and they knew this one also has this thing. Yeah.
Where were you born?
Sorry?
Where were you born? Were you born in Nairobi?
Yes, I was born in Nairobi.
So it was lucky because now you had access to KNH.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. There are many others who were not born, even at that time, near Nairobi. So what would happen? If they're taken to a health facility, what would they be told?
Now, even to go statistically, in order to answer that, majority of children born with severe, especially severe hemophilia, don't live past the first 5 years, right? They don't go past 5 years. Now, for those who are in other places in the country, and we visited a number of them, interacted with the community, it's a real problem, because the first place people go to is witchcraft, right? And then that's really the first thing. I love him, but it's true, because I struggle with that even today. You'll meet some people, tell them, I have this condition.
Oh man,
and what they'll say is, hii ni ya damu. Hii endo ongeleshe mzazi, and kuna kitu hakutoa somewhere. And so it's very difficult for them to get help, very difficult. Majority of the medical staff in rural areas have no idea what this is. They had it once in med school when they were studying genetics or something, or blood disorders, something like that. But that's as far as it goes.
So again, I mean, what symptoms do you have? And why this is such an important question is because usually if anybody who would then be a caregiver or somebody who would understand the condition, if we don't see a physical manifestation of something, then it's very difficult for us to even imagine that, something is wrong, or that then can we be more sensitive? Can we treat better, or even imagine that, okay, if I see this and I'm in the presence of somebody that needs medical attention, then I know this is one or two things that it could possibly be. Then I can help. So what are some of the symptoms that you experience and that we will be able to say, okay, here, something is wrong, we need to go?
Right, so hemophilia and bleeding disorders in general, they have different severities. And so someone like me who has severe hemophilia, as a child, there was mostly easy bruising. If I play too much, you'll see, my skin color, how like a clot forms. So you'll see something like that. Nose bleeding for the most part, and excessive nose bleeding. So when there's nosebleed, just doesn't stop, and people can't seem to do anything about it, even if you go to the doctors. For the different severities, you will find different symptoms. So someone with moderate to mild hemophilia may not present any of those. So some people with mild hemophilia only know about it during surgery, right, on the surgical bed. People with moderate, they'll see some joint problems. So for example, there's swelling in the joints, because there's bleeding into the joints because of the kind of trauma that you get. Just in general, everyday living, there's this sort of trauma that you have. Usually also with severe hemophilia, you'll find bleeding into the muscles. So if someone does any strenuous work, they becomes very painful. There's bleeding into the muscles, and it's very painful. That's one of the ways to know that it might actually be a bleeding disorder.
So those that find out later, those that you say like it's mild, so you could live with this thing for years, even tens of years, and you'll only find out in your 30s, 40s, 50s.
Yeah, in case there is an accident or a traumatic experience, that's for many people. That's the only way they knew that they had hemophilia.
And does it present in the same way? So they'll be on that operating table. They're bleeding. It's not clotting.
Yes.
But I'm sure they've bled through their life. So what has been happening previously?
What's been happening is the severity means that the level of clotting factor available in their body has been able to deal with majority of the challenges that people go through, right? Just everyday living. But then during this procedure, because it's where it's almost deliberate cutting through the blood vessels, and the doctors are not aware of any such history, then it becomes a problem with excessive bleeding.
Can one tell?
We can tell, especially with severe to moderate. We can tell when, and doctors today they can tell when there's a bleeding condition.
Right.
Just being able to tell what sort of bleeding disorder it is, that's what needs specialized.
How common is this in Kenya, hemophilia?
So hemophilia in particular is a rare disease. Globally, it's a rare disease, and it is said to affect about 1 in every 10,000 males.
So 1 in every 10,000 males,
male births. And so our estimate for a population of 50 million people, for example, in Kenya, would be about 5,000 people total with particularly hemophilia. But then there are other bleeding disorders like von Willebrand's disease, there are platelet disorders. You can imagine maybe up to 200,000 people struggling with that. And so hemophilia predominantly affects males.
Why?
And because that's the gene. It's a gene that you inherit from your mother. So let me put it this way. In the same way that there are things you inherit, certain traits from your parents, we inherit our ability to clot, right? So the production of the clotting factor from our mothers, right? So it's X-linked. So it's a trait that comes through the mom, right? So when that
your mother is your blood relative, like for real.
Like for real. So when that happens, if the mother is a carrier of the hemophilia gene, meaning they have a mutated gene, it's a recessive gene in the with the clotting factors, what happens is now they pass that on to the child, and if it's a boy, it tends to express itself through boys, but girls remain carriers.
So the mother will not know.
The mother will not know. Now, it's a recent development. I would say by recent, in medical terms, it's maybe the past 20 years or so.
That's recent.
Yes. That we've known that carriers of hemophilia also experience mild to moderate hemophilia. So that means that they might be experiencing, for example, particularly in their menstrual period, might be a heavy one without any other causes, without any known causes. And so for most of them, you just hear, just have a heavy flow for ladies. But then when you come to it, you find out sometimes when they give birth to a child, then you know that there's a problem. Sometimes they experience excessive bleeding during childbirth themselves. And there's really no remedy for them. But then when the child has hemophilia, then you know that the mother is a carrier.
Let's take a break. We'll continue this conversation shortly. It's 29 minutes to 10. Our guest this morning on this Health Friday conversation is Isaac Waidaka. Isaac is a hemophilia warrior. You say you have severe hemophilia.
Yes.
The 17th of April is World Hemophilia Day, and he's here to create awareness on this particular condition. And just say again, what's the condition? How would you describe it?
I would describe hemophilia as a bleeding condition where blood does not clot as it should, and so there's excessive bleeding in case of a cut, nose bleeding, bleeding into joints. That's it really for the most part.
Okay. We'll continue shortly after this break to tell us about the weather and traffic.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start
sunny
your day.
Conditions in Nairobi this morning, it's 19 degrees. We'll see highs of 24, and at 20, it's sunny in Nakuru with highs of 27. 19 and mostly sunny in Nyeri with highs of 26, and at 19, Eldoret is cloudy with highs of 26 and lows of 14. 27 and cloudy conditions in Mombasa with highs of 29, while in Malindi at 26, it's cloudy with highs of 29 as well. Kisumu is sunny at 25 with highs of 29, and at 22, Kakamega is sunny with highs of 30. Partly sunny conditions at 24 in Kampala with highs of 29, and at 24 it's cloudy in Dar es Salaam with highs of 28 and lows of 24. 17 and sunny in Johannesburg with highs of 24, while in Mogadishu at 31 it's mostly cloudy. It'll go to highs of 34. Addis Ababa is sunny at 20 with highs of 26 and lows of 14, and we're looking at sunny conditions at 29 in Lagos going to highs of 34. At 17, Johannesburg is sunny with highs of 24 and lows of 13. Looking into Kinshasa at 24, mostly cloudy with highs of 32. And Friday afternoon is cloudy at 20 in Beijing. That'll be the high, coming down to lows of 13. Cloudy conditions at 9 in Paris after the rain with highs of 12, while in London it's cloudy at 11. We'll go to highs of 14. It's still Thursday night in New York at 9 degrees. Coming into Friday, we'll see highs of 13 and lows of 9.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Done right.
haven't done too badly with traffic today. Just look at some of that as coming in from Limuru Road, heading into the city, either going towards Westlands or this other direction on Wangari Maathai, or through towards museums out towards Uhuru Highway. So, like I said, we're not stuck in anything terrible today. Some traffic bits and bobs on Kangunda Road, and looking at North Epa Road coming in from Cabanas, that has fizzled out. Let's talk through the morning and indeed through the day on SpiceFM KE on X.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Hemophilia warrior who's here to create more awareness to us about hemophilia. Can it be treated, cured?
Now, at the moment, there is no cure for hemophilia. But there are some developments, and a lot of them. Hemophilia is classified as one of the most expensive conditions to treat and to live with in the world. And so, for example, there are developments in gene therapy, in that sort of direction. But for the most part, what is available to treat hemophilia, the bleeding episodes, particularly, is something called clotting factor. And so, clotting factor is something that's injected into the bloodstream. It's really a replacement of the factor that is missing, the missing element that's in the blood that causes clotting. And so that is, for the most part, that's what people use. That's the most effective that we have at the moment.
And
So, go ahead.
how often would you have to have this kind of treatment? I'm thinking of other disorders of the blood, and I think of sickle cell, whereby there have to be constant transfusions, for example. Is that kind of the thing that we're not looking at essentially, because what it is you're removing and putting in new blood, but in this case you're introducing a factor. How often does that have to be done for some, at least comfortability for you? Right.
So the thing with hemophilia is the clotting factor is only used in case of an injury.
Okay.
So in case there's some bleeding happening somewhere, it could be internal or external. That's the only time that you need a clotting factor.
How would you know if there was internal bleeding happening? You feel the pain or something else?
Yes, you'll feel the pain. So for a person with hemophilia, particularly severe hemophilia, you get many more cases. And so you'd be able to tell that, this joint is not moving as it should. And there's usually a lot of pain in it. Or it's, even when it starts bleeding, you can tell there's some heaviness to it. So that and the muscles could be painful and all that. And so when that starts to happen, you go ideally to a treatment center, hemophilia treatment center, and they would give you then the shot. Right? Yeah. Okay. Just especially according also to the severity of the bleed. Yeah.
And what does the shot do exactly?
So what the shot does is that people were able to manufacture this clotting factor. Sometimes it's taken from human blood, and some is manufactured artificially. So they figured out a way of creating this protein, and so that clotting factor, what it has is that particular protein. It's just a replacement of, to the extent that you don't have or that you produce, it just adds to that and contributes to the clotting process. So it fills in the gap in the clotting process.
And transfusion wouldn't help?
So transfusion helps. With hemophilia, it's just that, for example, for mild to moderate hemophilia, unless there's a major event, and I'll give you an example. For the most part, growing up, from childhood, I think I got my first infusion of factor when I was 19. And so the years before would be, what we'd use is cryoprecipitate or fresh plasma or whole blood, if you can get it. It's very difficult to get that sometimes.
If you can get what? Blood?
Yeah, blood. especially for small bleeds, right? So you'd need to keep going back to the hospital, being admitted, having all that, and that's why a factor is the best solution to that. Yeah.
Let me ask this question: growing up and going to school, what was life like?
That was very difficult. I think to put it that way, I was very lucky. First of all, having an elder brother who had that. Fortunately, he passed away when he was 12 years old. Still from bleeding, just related causes. But then going to school for me, my mother was a teacher in the school I was in. So that helped a lot. And even seeing the challenges that people are going through today, I realized there are some of those that I didn't exactly experience. But then you can imagine I would miss majority of school. I think even friends in school used to see me just once in a while. He comes for 2 weeks, and then after that he's back home. And I learned how to study at home, how to, my mom would bring me homework and things like that. And today this is what people studied in your class, so you need to study this. So that's the kind of life that you live. You're rarely in school. If you are, you still have bleeds happening, especially without factor available.
And secondary school?
Secondary school, I was in a boarding school. I still spent majority of my time in the dorm. Though, as you grow up...
Explain why. So yes, you have hemophilia. You're in school.
Yes.
Why is it easier for you to spend time in the dorm and not walking to the classroom?
That's because, for the most part, the limbs are the ones that are affected the most because they're the ones you use, right? So sometimes I have bleeding in my arms and I can't write, right? I can't take notes. Internally. And so it looks like a swelling, right? Just a swelling anywhere.
What would have caused this in any particular instance? Is it because you've overstrained, because you wrote to... What is it?
Mostly you've overstrained. But then sometimes you don't know, and in growing up you wouldn't know what will overstrain you and what won't. And I mean, there are things like, you carried a bucket with water, you will overstrain. So maybe your shoulder will have a bleed or something like that. But then because most people don't understand that, you still have to do those things yourself. Somehow you have to find a way to survive. And so sometimes just everyday things, they can cause that bleed. But for people especially people with severe hemophilia, you can actually have a spontaneous bleed. It means it's a bleed that you don't know the cause of. There's no particular cause for it. And it might happen in the knees. So for me, majority of my bleeds used to be in the knees. And so once in a while, maybe I'll wake up in the morning. Maybe I did something the previous night. And, the bleeding starts slowly, and sometimes you can tell when you're asleep. And you wake up in the morning and it's swollen, and you can't go to class. So that becomes maybe 2-3 days of you're not mobile at all.
Was there understanding from your teachers and consideration as to this condition?
So my mom had explained that to them, but then, to a certain extent, being in a boarding school, there are things you just have to do. I mean,
you got to fetch your water.
Exactly.
You've got to come to the DH, or the meal will be gone.
Right.
Exactly.
What?
Yes.
What I'm wondering, though, as I'm listening to you, so sports out of the question.
Out of the question.
So what did you do instead of sports?
I studied a lot. I read things, my dad had National Geographic magazines from back then.
Yes.
And so I knew things much earlier, as a child, just from reading the magazines and stuff like that. That for the most part, yeah.
Okay, and after secondary school?
And after secondary school, I remember trying to figure out what I could do. And remember, at this time, I haven't yet joined a community of people with hemophilia. At the time, I thought I was alone after my brother had passed away. And so I actually, I remember what my mom used to do. She used to give me fare to go to the city center to town, and just so what she used to say is just go look at what people do there and find out. And especially being from where in the part of town I grew up in, she didn't want me to stay there so I don't adopt the
the
behaviors.
local habits.
Yeah, exactly. So I used to go to town, look around. I met just someone there who used to do graphic design, and I would sit next to them and look at what they are doing. What I'm trying to look at is, do they get hurt doing this? Is this that strenuous? And I'm realizing, no, I think I could do something with computers, and that's the direction I went in.
Where did you find this guy? Tell us about this guy.
So I found this guy in Kenda House, just next to Afia Center.
Yeah.
And I'd been given some work by someone else said, can you create business cards for me? And I went to look for someone to do that. And so I met someone who was a peer, just this more or less the same age. And he started showing me, this is what I do, this is the software I use, and I got really interested in that. And so I used to go back. So I remember, this was a place for printing. I remember one day I needed some money. So what I did, so they used to pay you extra if you can take, the trolleys.
Yep.
Right? So you can take this trolley from Afia Center there, take it all the way to Koja, and just bring back the trolley, and they'd pay you some amount. And I needed that for fare because I didn't have fare to go home. So I took one full of printouts all the way
to Koja.
All the way to Koja.
From Afia Center.
Yes.
Oh dear.
Knowing full
when
well,
I went back home, I think I stayed for maybe 2 months.
Oh no!
I had bleeding everywhere.
From that one day.
And just that one.
Just
day.
one trip.
One trip.
Oh my God.
And I could not tell my parents what I'd just done. Right, so I just stayed there. So what's the problem? I have no idea what I did. Maybe I worked too much, but I knew exactly what I'd done. Right, and so that really cemented for me the idea that I really can't do this. Because your parents tell you can't do manual work, you have to figure out things in a different way. But it doesn't settle in yet until you experience it yourself. I remember later on looking for a job, and I called on some favors, and someone organized an interview for me. And the day before the interview, I got a bleed and I couldn't go. And I just realized I can't do this at all. I just need to think about maybe business and my own skills, my own craft, and so that's the experience for majority of the people with hemophilia. Yeah.
Now, when you joined the community, how did you find out about the community?
So I was sick. I was in hospital in Kenyatta, and someone came. So they heard that there was someone who was unwell there, and they had just received some amount of factor. I'm not sure where they got it from. I think they got it from the society. Someone had come with it, and so they came, told me about hemophilia as I was being discharged, going back home. They told me that there is an event they're holding. So this was Jose Memorial. That there's a fundraising event they're holding. It would be good if I was a part of it, and I was connected to someone else. And when I went there, I found that there are so many people with hemophilia. So people are showing me around. So I'm told this is a guy with hemophilia, and I can tell because there's this characteristic limp they have. Maybe one of the arms is not fully functional. So I can just tell, this one as well, and that one, and I can tell how this person walks. Does he also have hemophilia? Yes, he does. So that's how I got.
And this is the first time that you actually knew you were not alone.
Yes.
How old were you?
I was at that time I was 21.
It's the first time after the passing of your brother. Your brother passed away when he was 12.
Yes.
And you were 8 years young. You were 6 years younger?
Yes, I was 6 years young.
So you were 6 years old. So between the age of 6 and 21, you had not come across anybody else who has hemophilia.
I had.
To the best of your knowledge, you did not know.
Now that I think about it, I had met a few people during my circumcision. And so there were other boys who were also being circumcised. When I was coming into the hospital, they were going out. And so we didn't exactly interact. Maybe 2-3 of them. but they didn't look like they had hemophilia. Not like the kind I had, but that was about it.
Okay.
You were circumcised?
Yes.
With your condition?
Yes.
How did that one work out?
That was a procedure. So with hemophilia, of course, you have to go to hospital, and what they do is, they line up fresh frozen plasma for you, and so after you go through the procedure, then you have to be infuse that continuously until it heals.
Stabilize.
Yes. So that took maybe about 2 months. So I was in hospital for 2 months.
Hold on a minute. After circumcision, you were in hospital for 2 months?
Yes.
Oh, wow. So to basically make sure that you were going to be okay leaving?
Exactly, yes.
Okay. So what is everyday life like? And I ask this because here you are in Nairobi, right? You have parents who knew what was happening, and for the better part had access to information and had access to medical service, medical facilities, that.
Exactly.
But I dare to think that there are a lot of people who have this condition and have either no idea that they have it, that they're just suffering something along the way, or are not able to afford to treat it when they can. What would that be like for them? And I mean, what really is the lifespan of somebody who would not then have access to treatment?
So it's a good question. So when I was growing up, I got wind of some statistic that the life expectancy for a person with severe hemophilia in a country like Kenya was, at the time it was about 18 years. Then later on, when I got to 18, I went to look at it again.
And you're okay, yeah.
And I found out that it was about 30 years old. And so I remember I planned my life for 30 years.
Wow.
I was like, okay, so by 30, this is what I need to have done, all this. Now for people in especially rural areas, they struggle with a special, there's another layer to it.
Yeah.
And the layer is stigma.
Sure.
And that makes it even more difficult. So you can imagine for majority of the parents, so the parents, it starts with especially the mothers. Even those who have access to a hospital today, and they go there, and usually the doctor will say something to the tune of, this might be a bleeding condition, it comes through the mother.
Boss.
And from the moment they say that, the husbands, the fathers separate themselves. We've had cases where, the family, the man's family decides, you can no longer marry this woman, she has this problem, so we'll find someone else for you. Exactly. And so from that time they are alone, and it's something that we've been studying. It's a cycle of poverty. So from that time the mothers are alone. In the society, the moment a child has a problem and it's a bleeding issue, then there's a lot of ostracization, even from their own families. So there's a particular case we had in Turkana, that was the mother had gotten, she had the child with hemophilia, and the traditional practice in their culture was bloodletting.
Like what you do with cattle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is it's a dire situation. So she had to protect the child, and because of protecting the child, according to their customs, if you're preventing your own child from being healed, you're a witch. You're a witch, right? Because it means you are the one who wants to cause it. And so she struggled a lot, and it took a process of resettling her and such things. Access to hospital is so difficult in that side, right? So just access to a hospital, and then access to a hospital with a person, with a medical professional who knows about hemophilia and how to handle it, just another layer. So it's very difficult.
How many are you in the society?
So in the society, so in the community, right? So in the community, we have a count of about 1,000 people, give or take, and about 1,000 people who are registered, who are diagnosed with hemophilia, just around there. Yeah, as a community.
Different ages.
Different ages.
Oldest, youngest.
The youngest I think we've seen so far is a few months old. The child was born just last year. The oldest that I am aware of is someone who is 60-something now. I think they had mild or moderate hemophilia, and that's the oldest person that I am aware of. Yeah.
Do you have other siblings?
I do have other siblings. They don't have hemophilia.
Are they boys?
Yeah, 2 guys and 1 lady.
Okay. Do you imagine, I mean, you said you had a plan until you were 30. But I mean, it's a really heavy thought to have, isn't it?
It is.
That you, in your head, you're thinking that, okay, well, one day it will be lights out kind of thing,
right. Right.
Does that play heavily on your mind, or are you able to say, look, it's today, let's get through today and then get to the next day? How do you handle that? Because it's a real thing, and maybe there are other folks who are also in the same boat who need to understand, okay, so how do I navigate this? It must be really heavy on your head.
It is, and I see this especially for guys with hemophilia around in their teens, and just later on, dealing with issues with relationships, with work. As men, there's this question about your masculinity, which primarily comes from your ability to do things, especially in our culture. So there's that kind of challenge. But then this thought that you could die at any time, in case of an accident, and I mean, it's very difficult to balance, to constantly think about that. Now, I've gone through different experiences where I've been hospitalized, and I even have a story somewhere about an out-of-body experience that I came to learn later that's what it was. Right, so you have bleeding into your internal organs, and sometimes the body can't handle that. It's too much. The treatment, for example, in hospitals, is not done fast enough. At a time when there are one or treatment centers. So through things like that, I think I would say it's constantly an existential crisis, and it's very hard for other people to relate with that. But there's a different struggle. So, for example, for those of us who grew up without factor, around our ages, I remember experiencing the challenges with my knees, with arthritis, at around 12 years. But I thought...
You had arthritis at 12?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Undiagnosed, but it's known that when you have bleeding
swelling
into
of the joints,
of the joints,
bleeding,
so there's joint damage, a lot of it. So from 12, I've always had pain in my knees, walking, going upstairs, going downward, and all that, sitting for too long, standing for too long. There are those challenges. And interestingly enough, I think maybe because of how I was raised, I thought everyone else experienced that. I remember someone asking me, what is it like living with hemophilia? And I didn't quite understand, what do you mean? And it's like, no, don't you have the pain in your knees? And I realized other people don't have pain in your knees, and aches in your body when you're going to sleep and things like that. I think that just opened my eyes to I think this is different.
You said it's very expensive to live with hemophilia.
It is.
What does it cost you a month?
Luckily, it doesn't cost me much. And that is because there are these organizations that have, found a way to get donations for their factor. If I were to buy factor for myself, so the factor is measured in international units. So for a person of my body weight with an average bleed say mild to moderate bleed, I would need about 6,000 total units. Because of age, maybe because of resilience, I'd need maybe about 4,000 or so. But for just complete, dealing with the bleed completely would be about 6,000 IUs. So for the market rate for factor is anywhere between 40 US cents to $1 per unit. So if we can calculate at the highest at $1 per unit, that would mean I need about $6,000 every bleed. And at $6,000 for a person with severe hemophilia, right now I have maybe around, and I'm very careful in how I'm living my life. Exactly. Maybe 3 a month.
$18,000 a month.
Exactly. Yes. So that's how much you'd need to just live with hemophilia.
Wow. Hey, you'll come again. We need to create more and more awareness about this. I mean, there's a lot here that we are talking about. There's a lot to unpack in coming days. But Isaac, thank you very much for joining us. Isaac Waidaka is a hemophilia warrior. He has taught us very many things about hemophilia today. We still have a lot to learn about this condition. It's 10 a.m. Thank you for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation. Have a lovely weekend. We'll see you on Monday.
Defense Forces